Yeah.
All right, we're calling this meeting to order at 5:03 p.m. Do I have a motion to establish the agenda as published?
So moved.
A second?
Seconded.
Great, and moving on to the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve items 1C, 1D, and 1E, the minutes from the 6th, the 19th, and January 4th?
So moved.
A second? Excellent. All those students in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Directors, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So 2-0 student representatives, 4-0 directors, and moving on to 1F, swearing in our newly elected board member.
Great, so come on up.
Where do you want them?
Right here, we'll let Ian get settled there. All right, you ready to do this?
Sure.
I, Jody Lee,
I, Jody Lee,
having been duly elected to the office of Mercer Island School District number 400.
having been duly elected to Mercer Island School District number 400,
Yep. Director position number 5,
director position number 5,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of this office
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of this office
as prescribed by law and to the best of my ability,
as prescribed by law and to the best of my ability,
and that I will support and maintain the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Washington.
and that I will support and maintain the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Washington.
Congratulations,
Thank
welcome
you.
to the school. Well, it's been a long time coming, Director Lee, and we're finally there, so congratulations.
Congratulations, Jody. Now that we have our fully constituted board, for those, I received an email asking when board positions would be, the reorganization would take place, and we had delayed until now because pursuant to board policy 1005, there's some ambiguity, but the board felt it best to wait until all the board, the newly constituted board was in place. So now that that has occurred, we will move on to 2A, which is deciding those positions. Do I have any nominations for president? I would like to nominate Deborah in recognition of her tenure on the board. So it would be, what, 6 years, or coming up on 7 years now, and a recognition that I think of a balanced board that has many different perspectives is the most effective one. And that we don't have to agree on all the issues, and that we all have our imperfections. But we also bring our strengths and our experiences and our perspective to the board. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other nominations for board president? Hearing none. And this is, we also have students, or is this just a board? I forget. Like,
We have, this is our first time.
So.
We can do, it's a roll call vote, on it, and so it's really up to you as a board. We haven't necessarily done this before, or actually, you know, what we could do is we could ask the student representatives together of a yay or nay, and then do roll call vote after that. That way you can vote together if you want.
What if they don't agree? We're fine to go together.
Okay, and so for the roll call vote, then we'll do the directors first, or?
Let's do student
Okay, so
first.
we'll do student first. All those in favor, I say aye.
Aye.
Directors,
And then do roll call, so you've got to call on each one all the way around. So Director Lee,
Aye.
Director Martinez,
Aye.
Director Tucker,
Aye.
Director Lurie,
Aye.
Director Glowitz. Aye. Great. So we now have our president. Congratulations, Deborah. And I just want to thank you, Director Glowitz, for this interim period. We've endured a number of firsts along the way. So we've kind of had to navigate some things, but it's been great to partner on this, and I think we got it. So thank you.
Fully charged the computer. Okay. Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege to serve in this role. I will intend to do it to the best of my ability, and Dan, thank you for those words. I couldn't agree more. There are a few things I would love to do to kind of look at in terms of our leadership structure this year, but now is not the time, but just a preview in terms of sharing more leadership with regards to discussions during board meetings and who leads those discussions during board meetings and sharing that role much more. I think it could add to, really useful ways of making sure that all of our voices are heard. Also in terms of having the opportunity to grow the knowledge of our newer board member or newer and brand new board members with while building relationships with our returning board directors and setting up a structure for that. So those are some of the things that I'm really looking forward to. I think that our district is on a great path, can always continue to improve, and working collaboratively with each other and with Dr. Rendell and the leadership team, I think that we can continue to do that. I think we've been on a really, good trajectory, certainly in the school year, and really looking forward to continuing that. So in that light, I would like to nominate Dan Glowitz for vice president. Basically to echo much of what you said, it's pretty obvious that we don't always see eye to eye, but when you really break it down, that number one, that's not a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. I think it leads to better resolutions of issues to be able to discuss them and have different points of view. I think also the trajectory we're on is a great one, and I really look forward to continuing to hear and discuss new ideas and value those discussions very much. So I continue to I look forward to that and hope you will accept that nomination and looking for a second.
I second that nomination.
And I accept, thank you for those words. I think, looking back over the last couple of years, there's been some big victories in terms of preserving regionalization. I think sort of the appointment of the superintendent and Fred in the process that we embarked upon. And then also recently navigating challenging issues with respect to the footprint of the school district in the near future going forward. And I look forward to, continuing to tackle those issues, with open discussion, collaboratively, and then reaching consensus and forging a path ahead. So I'm excited.
Any other nomination? Hearing none, this is another roll call vote. I will go to the students.
Aye.
And Director Lee.
Aye.
Director Martinez.
Aye.
Director Tucker.
Aye.
Director Glowitz.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So congratulations. Now the position of legislative representative. Call for nominations.
I nominate Director Lee for the position.
And second,
I second that.
you accept the nomination?
I accept it.
Any other nominations? And hearing none, this is yet another roll call vote. We'll go to the students first.
Aye.
And Director Lee.
Aye.
Director Martinez.
Aye.
Director Tucker,
Aye.
Director Glowis, and I vote aye as well. So congratulations. You know, you are new to all of this. You know, several of us, or at least a couple of us have held this position before and, you know, and through the years, it's grown and changed. So it's really a position to, I don't want to say do what you want with it, but really kind of as much engagement, you know, as you're comfortable with and, looking forward to see, I know you've got a strong background in advocacy and, working in government. So, look forward to, watching you grow and learn in this position. So we will help guide on some, yes, we will help guide and point you in the right direction and the resources. There was a WASDA meeting today, legislative update and start to get you on board and knowing what's going on. It's great, exciting time since our legislative session just started. So moving on, to 3A, no, to,
To B.
oh, to B, board assignments. We need to make a little bit of a modification because oh, you took me off of the advocacy. Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Oh, I was looking for that and didn't, yes, agreed. I was looking for that and didn't see it.
Yep.
Okay, so we have some positions from, either based on new roles and then also, outgoing board directors and that we need to fill. So, just to kind of go through them all at once, traditional, well, not even traditionally, the legislative representative handles the PTA advocacy committee. So that would be Jody, unless there's an issue with that. In terms of timing or anything, their meetings are Fridays, 9:30 to 10:30. They're both in person and on Zoom, or I think kind of every other. Do you anticipate any major
No.
conflict? Okay. Then we have, looks like, middle school PAC. Is there anyone, well, primarily our two new directors. Do you need information about what the PAC is or have you participated? So the PACs,
Yes.
the PACs are the principal, they're parent advisory committee and they're set up by the principals of the schools.
Yes,
Each
yeah.
school has one. They meet anywhere from 5 to 7 times a year. You'll see the dates on here. So at the middle school, which when it's open is Tuesdays, 3:15 to 4:15, and it looks like there's 4 remaining for the school year. So are either one of you interested in taking on the middle school PAC?
So all of these positions will be divided between both of us. That's why
Maybe, or, yeah, I mean, typically we try and have everyone cover about 3. An officer position
Perfect.
counts as 1. And so Jody now has room for 1 more. Because I gave up the PTA advocacy, I have room for 1 more. You have room for all 3. So, I think it's, in my experience, I would recommend taking on a PAC, because it's a different kind of experience.
Not an officer position count as 2, no?
I think historically it's been 1.
1, okay.
And then like ledge rep, it's 1 plus the PTA advocacy
yeah,
committee,
okay.
so there's often something else along with it.
Okay.
Are you, Christina, would you like to do the middle school PAC?
It's fine, yes.
Do you have, I don't want to force it on you. Is there a hesitation
You have like.
that you have a middle schooler?
Well, I was thinking about the other, first, dividing the other and then go back. Can we go back to
Sure.
that one at the
Yeah.
end and then remember what we have? Yes.
Yeah.
I think that will make more sense.
Okay, okay, so we have PTA council, which, is our district representative or our board representative at the PTA council meetings that are once a month on Fridays, right? Wednesdays, 9:30 to 11:30. We have PTA DEI committee, which meets monthly on the second Monday in the evening.
And that one usually goes with the superintendent's equity advisory council. Those two go together.
Okay. We did PTA advocacy. We have the equity advisory, that is on Tuesdays. It meets 5 times a year. So it has 3 more meetings, 3:30 to 5. And inclusive practices, which is really just at this point, a 1-day kind of conference where board director attends with leadership team or the appropriate members of the leadership team. So that being said, is there anything on there that Christina or Jody, you're interested in doing?
So I was thinking that the PTA, the DEI committee and superintendent, equity advisory, since I have blocked them in my calendar for the year, and I know that I have time for.
Okay,
For sure, but I need a third one, right? And, I don't know if the inclusive practices might intersect with those two, so might work.
I think that's perfectly appropriate, and that's always in, late May, that's a 1-day thing, it's gonna be during the week, during the day. It's a 1-day conference typically, right? Is that how they're doing it this year?
I haven't seen it come out yet. The inclusive practices, they're gonna do one in June.
It's either end of May, late June, and they haven't decided, and they usually split us up into 2 groups, so we wouldn't know what day yet, but, typically on any given year, there could be 1 to 4, like 1 to 2 hour meetings with one at the end of the year being an all day or a half day function.
Okay,
One thing too, and none of this is necessarily in policy, but you had talked, and I think it's fine. I just want to remind you, you had talked about the vice president being hooked up with certain things like equity or whatnot. That's not in policy anywhere. That was that board's conversation.
That's.
I was just wondering what the history was, like, for some reason I wasn't as familiar with that and like how that came to be.
I can't remember the full details. Do you remember the full details on that, Michelle?
Minutes, I counted in minutes that the vice president was to serve on DEI and
There was a reason behind that.
There was a
but it
reason.
Feels like vestigial, like I think we should drop that.
yeah, I think, and then also looking at, I don't disagree. I remember talking about it, I can't remember exactly why we thought it was a great idea at the time.
I know why. It was because the vice president is at the agenda planning sessions and therefore would have an opportunity to make sure that DEI concerns got placed on the agenda as appropriate. But I sort of feel like we're all kind of on the same page with that now. I think at the time it was kind of like, let's make sure these concerns don't just get pushed to the side.
Right,
And having someone who is definitely going to be present at agenda planning session. That was the justification, but I feel like we never like voted on it. So I think we can just.
and it's also just the timing of the committee, I mean, now it's new directors and then leadership, but we typically do this in September or August and for the school, or September for the school year, and then they don't line up.
And I will see how that might be important. So maybe have this as a practice to review it every year if that is something, because the board will be changing.
Sure.
And maybe sometimes you will need that for the prior president. So something that each board will decide if that is that years.
And any board member can request to have an item placed
For sure,
on the
yeah.
agenda, so it's certainly, not the exclusive
Yeah.
domain by any means of the president and vice president, and I would love to see that happen, more frequently, going forward for those, agenda items that might not be on the radar, but are important to discuss as a full board.
Right, and I was gonna add to that and say that, just making sure that it's, in the front of your mind, and this goes to everyone on every committee, of really doing, reports of not only that you went to a meeting, but if there were specific important for the board to know about issues that were discussed. And then as a result of that, can recommend perhaps this would be a good board discussion, we could add it to a future agenda. So yes, I mean, as long as that's on everyone's radar, with regards to these committees, I think that we can take advantage of and learn and gain the, we take our time to go to these community meetings and don't always, allow the board to grow and benefit from that presence, and participation. So really bringing back to the board what's happening at these meetings and if there is action we can take or discussions we can have as a result, I think that is a positive. So we have,
I guess I have to choose one more just because.
no, that's three. That's DEI, SEAC, the Equity Advisory, and then inclusive practices.
Even if it's only one meeting, just make it, okay?
Yep, and you have plenty to learn.
Yeah, I know. that's-
So, yes, you're good. And then, so we have PTA Council, middle school PAC,
That's it.
and that's it.
Can I pick middle school back then?
You can pick middle school PAC. That's a really fun one. Teachers are very engaged, on that PAC.
Participatory.
It's very participatory, participatory and lots of learning.
Yeah.
And then PTA Council. Do either one of you wish to, or my numbers are lower. I certainly don't need to take on anything else, but I can, and I'm happy to. PTA Council, you guys have both been on PTA Council, right?
I'd rather do the PAC than the council.
Okay, so do you guys want to, because of your backgrounds, do you want to step back and not be?
Exactly.
Okay, I'm happy to take that on.
So I can't do PTA council this half of the year because I have a lot of schedule conflicts with it. I would be able to do the inclusive practices one if you, like, it sounds like you're happy to do it, but I have three
Yeah, you have-
elementary school packs already, so I'm just
Yeah.
saying, if you need it to make up the
What the heck is
numbers.
No, because I only have two.
They're all for me.
I only have two, and one is STLA.
Okay.
And then, Dan, you've got three, right? Yeah, you've got high school.
I think he has.
SCA, four. Okay, I'm happy to take on PTA Council. I love it, so.
And I've never done it, I'd love to do it next year.
Okay.
Great.
And for our.
And I love it, I just,
Yeah, no.
I have to have a break for a little bit and then to also.
I think that's good. I
Ah,
think that's very smart.
For our
That
newer
makes sense.
members, if you ever can't make one of your committee meetings, it's really nice if you can, with like maybe 2 days' notice, reach out to other board members and just say, hey, you can just send an email and say, hey, I can't go to this PAC meeting, can somebody trade me or whatever, so we have some kind of representation. Speaking of which, I can't be here for the Island Park PAC on Tuesday, May 14th. Yeah, this is anyone who could do that.
You want to do that now, or you want to just make a note?
Send
of
it,
it?
I'm saying, it. Okay, I'll send an email.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Someone can take it on. Okay, any issues, concerns with what we have? All right, sounds great. Moving on to, for number 3A, partial governance process monitoring, board policy 1250, students on governing boards, student representative report.
Great, so we just want to say Happy New Year to you guys, hope you're having a good, relaxing break. Just to let you guys know, this report's a little bit more brief, since our last board meeting was the day before winter break. We've only been back for about a week and a half, so it's a little bit more on the street stuff, but it was gonna start us out.
So first, starting with the elementary school, as you guys might have seen on the Mercer Island and social media channels, West Mercer got a new playground, so the students are definitely enjoying that. And, West Mercer students have also started up their regular student council meetings where they meet with the principal and talk about issues around the school. And then there are also a lot of fun events coming up, including talent shows at Island Park and West Mercer. And West Mercer and Island Park are also starting to rehearse for their 5th grade musicals, which is exciting.
The theme with this year's focus on belonging, Lakeridge hosted a 3rd grade culture fair on December 14th, which included performances of songs and dances from Israel, Ireland, and Russia. Students did research on their cultures beforehand and shared artifacts and posters at the fair. A grant that the PTA gifted allowed artist in resident and Angelique Carey to come and teach a few multicultural music numbers, which has been great for the elementary students. Belonging is also shown because the drill team has been hosting elementary school clinics, and they've also been great in the middle school too. So we're really happy with our drill team. And yeah,
And then, moving on to the middle school, so there's been like 28 clubs and they're all thriving and been in higher attendance, including the Dungeons and Dragons Club and the Cooking Club. And then, previously the middle schoolers voiced concerns regarding how crowded the hallways were and like all the traffic. And recently, there's been like a new hallway system with like new doors for like entry and exit, and some of them are one-way, some of them are two-way. So, they're working pretty well. And there's also new warning bells for passing periods, as well as a new hall pass system, so a lot of like changes in the structure of how students get around school. And then also upcoming is the middle schoolers will be attending Future Islander Night at the high school on Thursday, January 25th. And this is an event for middle schoolers to come and look at the refreshed course catalog, meet with counselors, and also get tours from student leaders in the high school. And some of the concerns that we've heard from the middle schoolers in SSA are like wanting more field trips, for example. And also, the iPad keyboards cracking easily. So yeah, that's a little small detail, but yeah.
winter break was really relaxing for the high school students. Teachers did a really good job enforcing the no homework over break policy. Students are currently preparing for finals, which will begin next week. Though there's a lot of tests for students and there's a lot of stress at this time, Ava and I have been seeing a lot of teachers take creative steps to find ways that aren't so intensive on the actual final date. And that has been projects like mockumentaries, forums, presentations, and more. And that's been really great for students.
Yes, and then regarding some recent events, this week, which, I think yesterday, yeah, DECA had their first Area 3 competition. I saw Director Larry judging there. Yeah, and so students have the opportunity to go to state in their respective business events, as it is a business competition, and it's really exciting. We had a lot of students, like over 200, I think, went. And then, last weekend, the band also had their concert band intensive, which was like an event that happened at the school on Friday night and the whole day on Saturday. And this included master classes with guest directors, as well as like other bonding activities. And then the Black Student Union created a video about MLK that we watched in Islander Hour last week. And, as we will be observing MLK Day on Monday. And then the juniors went through consent training in one of the other Islander Hours, in December. And the seniors ordered their caps and gowns.
And then over the break, our basketball teams both traveled for tournaments. The boys team played in Tustin, California, and the girls team played in Las Vegas, Nevada. Both teams are doing pretty well in terms of state rankings. The girls gymnastics team had their senior night on January 4th, and the rest of the winter sports will be having their senior nights as we go through January. Also this past week, the Islander Middle School drill team had the opportunity to perform at the girls' basketball game against Bellevue. So Ava and I had the opportunity today to attend a PAC at the high school, where we were talking about the cancellation of our winter formal. And we were talking about how ASB no longer made money last year on the winter formal, and they actually took a loss. So we were talking with the parents kind of about ways to kind of refresh and kind of look at dances in a new way, as like they are great for belonging, because it's one of the few school-wide events we have that don't require an interest in sports or a club or whatever. So we just kind of talked about that, and the parents had some good ideas too. And yeah, that's our report.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Just to piggyback on DECA, yeah, I was there judging. It's been many years now. It's a super fun event, and it's really rewarding to get to see our students and the things that they accomplish. It's hundreds of high schoolers, and it's pretty amazing what they learn and are able to present and pull together with like 10 minutes of prep time before their event. And I highly encourage you all to look into volunteering in the future. If you can. You don't need any experience, you don't need to know anything, I promise. They literally give you the questions that you have to read from, so don't feel like you don't know enough to to do it. So it just a plug for, the program, the staff, led by Ms. McClellan is just amazing, and the way that they, just, all of our business students and being, I think it was about 240 students from Mercer Island were there.
When is the next date that they'll need judges for?
Probably next year at this point.
I did have one question about the Mercer Island Pact that embarrassingly I was not able to make because of a unexpected conflict. But regarding dance culture, I saw that for homecoming, I got the notes, the numbers were down from, I think it was 900 in 2017 to 400 tickets were sold this year. So the question was, is it sort of across the board in terms of all dances, or is there particular events that there's been a more precipitous decline? And then what were some of the solutions or ideas that were discussed at the meeting earlier today?
Winter formals always had less attendance, so homecoming attendance has gone down, but winter formal attendance has gone farther down, which is why they decided not to host. I think they had about 100 ticket sales last year, which is just not enough to break even. They were just kind of talking about how the event doesn't really excite students if they're not really interested in physically dancing, and how there's a lot of focus on after parties and the kind of things that families provide to students after. A lot of it was talk around how maybe one is different from the other, maybe one is a little less formal than the other, just to kind of engage. But there's a lot of schools around the area are also having this problem, so it's not just us. So kind of thinking about what other schools are doing to get kids to go to dance. Ava, do you have some?
Yeah, like I said, it's it's a general trend around, so people are really trying to find a way to reinvent dance culture, especially because people don't dance. And I think there was a lot of discussion about allocating community resources and having more parent involvement in the organization of dances, as right now, it's only organized by a small group of students in ASB, which is the student group leadership. And so, yeah, just having more community involvement might help, because it keeps more accountability and has more people involved, so more people will want to go, supposedly, yeah. So that's mainly what they could.
Our PTA council had a parallel conversation at their meeting on Wednesday around bingo nights and the events that they've sponsored and participation. So one of the schools was talking about a trivia night that they had to cancel or postpone, hopefully, but maybe cancel, because they're struggling to get volunteers to run the event, but then people signing up is very limited as well. And so I think trying to figure out in this, wherever we are in the world right now, post-COVID or not, what do we need to do to engage our families? And what's the purpose? And I think that's what I hear you saying is, what's the purpose of a dance? And is that the only way to promote belonging and bring students and families together for our elementaries?
Interesting discussion. Yeah. Ready, I think our community, everyone is ready for a shift of something, and figuring out what that is.
I was very impressed that the elementary schools taught the kids to dance in PE class before I forget what it was. At the middle
Hoedown.
school.
There's a hoedown.
Is it the hoedown?
Island Park did it.
No, it was at the middle school specifically, and it was for all the elementary schools to come to the middle school. I forget what it was called, but whatever it was, this was not this school year, but last school year. So they taught the kids to do the Macarena and to do this.
Yeah, Island Park's been doing that.
Yeah. But I was impressed by that, because then there's not that awkward standing around going, I don't know how to dance, this is embarrassing,
Yeah, and I think it definitely be something that we could, explore in terms of, ideas like that, or movie nights at the high school, and using, the room to its full capacity, that might sort of draw in a smaller scale, but perhaps more numerous events that sort of breaks out of the molds that we currently have, that fulfill some of the same functions. Thank you for sort of putting that on the radar and, beginning the conversation of what we can do.
Okay, moving on to 3B, Board Policy 5010, non-discrimination affirmative action. the 2023-27 Workforce Diversification and Inclusion Plan Annual Update.
Great.
Dr. Merrill.
So normally we do this kind of usually in the December meeting. We postponed it just as a reminder because the data from the state wasn't out. And I think what you found as a board and the previous board found most helpful was being able to kind of see what's happening in other districts, not just what's happening here, so we can get a broader perspective. So Erin has put that together and is ready to present our 2024 report.
Perfect, does, do you mind putting it up?
No, the active plan will be updated.
The update. As a reminder, last year we introduced a revised version of our workforce diversification plan, and this is an update just showing our progress because we have a commitment under policy to give you an annual update of our progress on that plan. Something that is different from last year for the first time, at least in my tenure, and I believe, though I might be wrong, for the first time in the history of the Mercer Island School District, that our student body is less than 50% white or identifies as less than 50% of our student body identifies as white. At 49.5% of our students identify as white at this point in time. And then we have a very small percentage of American and Alaskan Natives. We have an increasing percent of historically underrepresented ethnic and racial groups in the Asian. We've seen an increase in our Hispanic and Latino population. And then where we really have seen the biggest increase in our 2 or more races. So our staff demographic continues, however, to be significantly white. We are down from last year, or I guess the percent identified as white is less. But it's still the majority of our staff identify as white, with 11.9% of Asian, and then as the next highest percent being Hispanic, Latino, or 2 or more races.
So can I just ask, the 2 or more races, does that mean they're not counted in the other categories?
Correct.
Okay.
And so it's a different, and this is all staff self, and same with students, self-disclosure.
And does it identify, like, I can't remember the form, like what those 2 races are?
It certainly does for students, and it depends on what point in time you came in the district regarding the staff demographic. So if you were a new person, it would identify, it, like, for example, if you're Hispanic, it's just Hispanic, Latino, so sort of, but if you were 2 or more races, it could be Hispanic and white, or Hispanic and Black, or African American, or Hispanic and Asian, so you do have those options. But in some categories, there's greater differentiation, or some ethnic groups, there's greater differentiation than others.
I would just guess that the number of Asian students, if you include like part Asian students, is closer to like, 30% or 33%.
On our student demographic, definitely one of the races is usually Asian, and the predominant of that category is Asian with another race in terms of our, and it was, I believe, 3 years ago that, or 3.5 years ago, that the state changed from just reporting out on the federal categories for students to actually asking families. And now there are, 400 different ways that students and families can identify. The staff one
It's
is
needed
not
to
the
follow
same
the federal categories as opposed to the states.
It might be interesting, at least on the student one in the future, to be able to have kind of a separate little pie for the 2 or more races that breaks that down. At least more, generally, obviously with 200 or so choices,
It becomes challenging.
it becomes challenging, but I mean, in terms of using these federal categories and then saying so, because if 15% is a pretty high number to not really know where students fall. Or this is the staff, oh, this is student, yeah,
That's
15% is a pretty high number to not know where they're falling.
The other question I have is, I see you have Hispanic, Latino, and usually that's recorded as ethnicity. So people usually have the option to say the race and if they're Hispanic or not. So how are you counting them in here? Are you counting double or are you, those who mark Hispanic, you just put them in that category and then count them the other way? Because you can be.
Yes, students are not being double counted, if that's
But
the
we
question
have the
regarding.
thing with staff and just, the students are not double counted, so.
No, and neither are staff, so they're falling in one.
So if I'm Latina, but I am Black Latina, then I'm counted as Latina or I'm like.
So you would be counted as 2 or more races if that's what you
Okay.
chose, because you can select 2 or more races and then select.
Okay, then I would agree with you because then you're missing a lot of information.
So last year, we had 5,293 different racial identities.
And I will say this is important because Hispanic and Latino is an ethnicity and you're
Right.
asking it apart from race.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it's misleading and how are you representing the data?
Right.
And we may be missing some diversity that's actually present.
Yeah, so, there were 95 different race categories selected in our students last year. I don't have the report for this year. From the Hispanic ethnic identity, 294 students identified as Hispanic. But then there were 23 different ethnic categories, that of the subcategories, last year. So just giving you an idea of our students last year.
So then what we take is, really this is, sort of monitoring, go down to the next slide. So how we have done with respect to our goals, which is to overall increase the, racial and ethnic diversity of our staff, as well as the utilization of females. That's something that we're charged to do with the state, but that's also an interest and value of the community and the board and the district. With respect to certificate administrators, we haven't seen change. So it continues to be an underutilization of historically underrepresented racial and ethnic groups. You will see that there was feedback from the board last year about some discomfort with the use of the term minority, which is something that is in the forms and the sort of the things that are monitored by the state. So when I'm using that term, to the extent you have concerns that we're not telling you what we're supposed to, it's the same group of people. We are just using a different term to identify them. That group of people. And then, so that we continue to have underutilization there. We've maintained our utilization in the classified administrative, admin, professional, and technical categories. Elementary teachers and secondary teachers. If you go to the next slide. We have seen improvement, in terms of our utilization of our historically, underrepresented racial ethnic groups from 18% to 25%, but it still is underutilized. So you've seen an increase, but it's still underutilized. There's maintenance of our utilization with the classified educational support. So those are your paras and what have you. And for those who don't know who certificate specialists are, those are our ESAs. So our BCBAs, our psychologists, our school counselors, our certificated nurses. That's what certificated specialists mean for the purposes of this report. Clerical support, we did have a decrease from 20% to 25%. That's actually a change of one person, just given the number of people, but it does impact our percentage. Bus driver, we've actually seen, if we go to the next page, there's been no change in custodial group. It's actually a very diverse, racially and ethnically diverse group, but we have an underutilization of female candidates. And every year I've presented this, it's been the same, but I want to highlight that in order for there to be change, there have to be people to leave in that group. So they either need to retire or somehow separate from the district. And we have a pretty stable workforce overall. So that can be challenging with some of these changes. With bus drivers, that's also been the case because we have bus drivers. I think we recognized one last year. How long had Roy been here? Like 37 years?
37 years.
So, I mean, people who take positions and we're really great for them in the district, they get to know our kids, they see all our kids from like kindergarten through now through high school. So that's a group that doesn't see a lot of turnover either. But we did have some turnover, and with that, we saw changes and an increase in our utilization of underrepresented racial and ethnic groups, but no change in female utilization. It tends to be a pretty male-heavy department. Maintenance and operation is the same. We saw an increase there in terms of the historically underrepresented racial and ethnic group population, but again, no change in female utilization. So the next page just sort of reflects the same information that also shows last year, so you can do a comparison. The colors to the right, where you see yellow and green, it just shows that the underutilization is not a change. So where you see underutilization with respect to certificate administrators, it's not changed. With respect to the underutilization of certificated specialists, it's still underutilized, but green means that it has gone up. So we have improved, but we haven't reached our goal. So that is true in the certificate administrators, the certificated specialists, clerical support, and bus drivers. So those are all areas where we haven't reached our goal, but we either maintained or increased our utilization. And then the next one is our female comparison, and we continue just to be not seeing utilization of women in the categories of custodial, grounds, bus drivers, and so this is the table, the final table, if you go on. This is the table that you found sort of most interesting, I think, last year, which is sort of comparing how we are doing as compared to our peers. And overall, we continue to do relatively well, I think, as compared to our peers. There are some areas where we do, where we sort of trade off, where there's some districts that are higher in the utilization of those who were identified as from an Asian background or as Asian. But overall, I think we're doing well with respect to our peers, and we are slightly above where we were last year in terms of our utilization.
Erin, do you want to talk just quickly for those who are either watching at home or will watch it later, just the percent negative versus percent positive and how that on the VAR?
Mm-hmm. So that's the variance. So where if you have this, your goal is really to, if you're overutilized, so if you look at, I guess I can look at Mercer Island. So Mercer Island, 82.1% of our staff identifies as white, whereas 51.2% of Mercer Island students, again, we have data because all the data from OSPI is 1 year old. So we wanted to use the same data. So that's a negative because we are overutilizing, we have more staff than student percentage. So that's why you can if you have a positive, which would be 2 or more races, that reflects, it's an 80% positive for Mercer Island. That means there are more students identifying as 2 or more races than staff. Does that make sense? And so an ideal world, you have 0, which would be parity. So you wouldn't have a positive or negative, because if our goal is to have a student body or a staff mix that reflects our student population, then our goal would be 0. So you don't want a positive or negative.
Do we have any affinity groups or mentor-mentee that might attract minority or underrepresented applicants, and then sort of perhaps differentiate us from other districts? And then sort of the second question is, relatively speaking, it looks like Bellevue School District is somewhat of an outlier when it comes to Latino and Asian teachers having significantly more, although still when it comes to Asian teachers, underrepresented relative to the student body, but significantly more than neighboring districts. Do we have any idea as to why that might be, or if it's perhaps, one of those, once you get a reputation as being more diverse, it becomes somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy and people are attracted?
It's sort of, anything that I would say would be a guess. So there's not empirical evidence why one district is more successful at attracting staff from historically underrepresented groups versus another. So this is Erin and my sense of things. We do know that staff members there are larger populations of teachers with those backgrounds in those catchment areas than others. So if you are, say, on Bainbridge Island, you have there are less in Mercer Island. There are frankly just fewer teachers here at all. And the teachers who are in this zip code don't identify as being from this historically underrepresented groups. In terms of your first question, which is affinity groups, I think there's been some work, I'm looking to Fred, there's been some work with staff to do that. We do have a pretty strong mentor program. And we did look at trying to join a mentor program through MIEA or WA, excuse me, but with full support, and it was really brought to us by our MIEA president, to try to join a program that would basically encourage people of color to enter the profession, specifically going down through special education. And we were not identified as a school district that would be a good sort of training ground, mostly because we are small. And so we would be able to absorb, because the way the process would work is that you have to guarantee hire someone. And so they would like a cohort of 5 to 10 people. We don't have that many openings. So to be successful, we'd have to partner with other schools. The other thing is we've gotten rid of self-contained classrooms and self-contained programs. And so they were wanting staff, those who were mentees, to have experiences in those self-contained environments that we just don't have. So that was another reason why we're identified as not a good match, at least for this year. But if we could partner with, say, a Bellevue or some other district that had those, then we might be able to take advantage of that. On the state level, they're also trying to create basically mentorship, or what do they don't call it mentorship, it has a different name.
The BEST grant
Yeah.
with the acronym, the BEST
yeah.
grant is a mentorship program.
It's a mentorship type program where you basically spend a year learning the job, but you're being paid during that time, either while in a program or post graduation. That's an interest at the state legislative level as well through OSPI. So I think we're actively trying to look for opportunities of how we can support that work if you look at the overall issue, going back to what I presented last year, the available staff, if you're looking at teaching staff, it's a pretty white dominant employment population. So that the majority of people who hold teaching certificates in the state identify as white. And so then we as districts, we all have this interest in diversifying our workforce. So we are all vying for the same small subset of people who do not identify as white. So people of color from historically underrepresented racial and ethnic groups. So we're trying to do two things. One is attract people now, but also address the pipeline issue, and increase the people in the pipeline who will ultimately hold certificates. So we have a larger population from which to draw.
Yeah.
And we're doing whatever we can to be part of those processes to contribute to an increased number of staff are available.
A different, like, just sort of hypothetical or suggestion would be to try to maybe leverage some of the unique aspects of being a small community. If there's the possibility of an affinity group with also public city employees.
Mm-hmm.
And something that would be a unique and a differentiating factor that other districts couldn't say that they had something similar.
Right.
And sort of show that, we might be small, but there might be more stronger, more intimate relationships and support that we're able to offer.
Having spent a year working in the Bellevue schools, during my internship, I will say that those schools are much more socioeconomically diverse than we are. They have a much higher proportion of Spanish-speaking families and of non-English-speaking families. So if I were a, bilingual elementary school teacher, I might feel like this is a community that really needs me, more than Mercer Island. So that's just a factor that we're just working against,
Yeah, we, it continues to be a topic of conversation in our superintendent meetings. I know AWSP is having conversations, that's the Association of Washington School Principals. Both on the staff side, either classified cert, but also principals, who are coming through. I know, Dr. Bowie, you're teaching at Seattle U right now in is it a special education degree? You're
Yeah.
in that one there. I don't know what your class makeups are right now
It's,
in there, but
pretty white centric in the class. However, Seattle U is looking at partnering with some of the micro-credentialing programs to see if doing micro-credentialing, because the state in PESB is now allowing for that in certain places, to see if that would help onboard a different population and excite different groups of people to get into education and then do it on their own timeline. And so looking at some ways to diversify.
And I will, if it's okay to interject, as I've shared before, we've been pretty successful. A lot of our diversification has actually come through sort of grow your own idea. So where we have a more diverse paraeducator and classified population, and that population, they're successful here. And frankly, I mean, we owe a lot to our administrators and our certificated teachers who are willing to mentor and support these paraeducators in their process of becoming teachers. Like we have teachers who are willing to take on student teachers here. And so we've been able to diversify from our own staff who already know our culture and have decided this is where they want to work. So that's been very positive. And I do want to give credit where credit's due, and also a hats off to the director of human resources, Rosie Burns. She worked very hard on that. And we look for people who, as paraeducators, love working with kids and love education. So I think that's also a good start. And frankly, our students, to you as well, they're having positive experiences and they can see their impact. And that's rewarding. And so they're choosing to go into the profession. And so that's much appreciated.
And I have a few questions, but I will start, I think that, I will see this data depending on your answer on this. I think, I would like to know the intention that we have with this. I can see the goals, but what is our intent to have this? Is it the intent to comply with the state and have this? But if the intent is to actually diversify and make sure that the students see role models, and we know that by diversifying staff, we do provide a better opportunity for children to have better discussions and have better educational outcomes. I think that we could see the data very different, because I think that also there's a lot of diversity within the clerical work, not as much in the staff. And I understand some of the reasons, but I think that we also have to think how our strategies are right now, and how can we, if we have to look somewhere else. Is the intent and the that is presented.
I think,
So I think,
I don't know if I'm-
yeah.
I think the intent is both. I mean, we always want to be compliant, because it's best to keep OSBI and the state out, and allow us to keep doing it. But there is a clear intention of trying to diversify our staff.
And I say it this way, and if our heart is there, and I will say also, I understand that we're talking about underrepresented and minorities and female, but at the same time, and the teacher level, male students do not see that many male teachers, and that also matters. Eventually, those will be the future teachers if we provide role models. So I think that we also have to fit in who are we talking with our underrepresented community, and what do we want to achieve? What is the ultimate intent? And if our real heart is really there, we have to really analyze who is there and in which positions. Like if the majority, I see that we have diversified a lot of the clerical and bosses, but it is where traditionally they have always been, and that's where we want to move away from.
So one of the, like, for instance, excellent points, in there. There was a period of time where a lot of the local universities weren't even really placing or allowing their student teachers to be placed in Mercer Island because they had a requirement that it had to be a more diverse community. We had to go out and meet with Seattle U and meet with directors in these programs to show that our community is much more diverse. It may not be as socioeconomically diverse or whatnot, but from a race and ethnicity perspective, I did just pull it up. 8,543 different races reported by our students, duplicated. And on the ethnicity side, just quickly on that, Director Martinez, 557 different ethnicities in the way people identify. Obviously, that's part of the multiracial piece, but there's not the multi-ethnic piece, but it's in our data, but it's not reported out on those. So yes, we've had to do some work with admissions departments, with education departments in the state to say, look at our district as a place for your students to be placed. And I think that speaks to Director Battersby's point around trying to grow our own out of there. The struggle right now is, even getting, who's even applying to get into the colleges and wanting to even be a teacher or be a principal even right now. There is a huge struggle with that. And so that's part of some of the conversations that we've even had at the high school around trying to encourage some of our students to go into education, to start younger, because waiting until college or whatnot is proving to be a problem for all of our districts across, but our heart has to be there, and we can have lots of reasons why we can't get there, but what are our methodologies? And we have to keep pushing that envelope.
So my next question related to that is, who is in charge of measuring the progress? And how are you measuring this within the different portion of the school?
Yep, and so Aaron and the HR piece is really the shepherd of this particular process, and through HR and the HR lens with that. And then within the report itself, that's why we bring it up each year, is to say, here's where we are now, here's what we're seeing in the region, here are the things that we've been doing.
We'll have to give it a second break.
You got it, absolutely.
We'll have more questions.
Great.
I will just give us feedback, that the colors, some of them say no change, but then it's a maintain, but it looks green, and then there's green on the bottom that says, I think that it was improved, so I would just let you know that in the kind of wording portion of the presentation is just kind of tricky that way to read it. Yes.
Which one, like?
Well, that it is black and then you see green on the
PowerPoint?
on the PowerPoint.
Okay.
That
So
is,
which part?
first it says no change, but then it says maintain, so no change on nothing is like, I just say.
Oh, no
of
change
colors.
versus maintain.
So,
Got it.
yes, it
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
does, because then that's an improve for historical or presenting green, so I think that will make it easier for everyone to read and see where we have made improvements and where we have not. Or maintained, so,
So we're heading past 6. I want to
yeah.
respect public input time, but I also want to, did you finish with your?
yeah, I was just gonna clarify the reason why there's different colors is that if you look, some of it is maintained, but if you, to the extent that you're looking at like custodial group appears no change in yellow, and that's because there's underutilization. There's no change, but it's in fact underutilized. Whereas if you say maintain for classified educational support, which is a slide above, it's fully utilized. So that's why it's in green. So it's been maintained, there hasn't been further diversification, but it is positive. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, it just,
Yeah.
I'll let you explain.
So I just wanted to, that is, yeah.
It's almost like it could be also say maintained, but just in yellow. It's like yellow maintained or green maintained.
Yeah, well, green maintain means because it's maintained and
In
utilized, so
a positive way.
in a positive way, where one is maintained, but it was underutilized.
Yeah.
We certainly can add that to, this type of discussion in terms of training and onboarding, in terms of where these reports come from, and then being able to schedule, time to dive deeper, to get a better background.
Yeah.
Information on some of basically long history, and, I'm sure we can benefit from all diving a little deeper in things, at times. Any other questions, concerns, comments?
I'll just say, thank you for doing the work you're doing on this. Nice to teach you. It look like that.
All right, so moving on to public input, skipping. Right?
Yeah,
I'm
we
gonna
can come
skip
back.
C, and then we're gonna go to 4A, for public input. I know we have 3, individuals on public input. Michael Bond will be first while he comes up to the podium. I will read the statement. If you would like to address the board on a particular issue, please complete the form attached and submit to the board secretary by emailing the completed form at least 60 minutes prior to the meeting. Note that if you plan to address the board in person, advance notice is appreciated but not required. Forms will be available at the door. The meeting is a meeting of the board in public. It is not a meeting that guarantees interaction between the members of the public and members of the board. When addressing the board at the meeting, please limit your remarks to not more than 3 minutes. Appoint a spokesperson if the concern is a group concern, and if desired, provide written documentation to the board secretary. Public comments that name or otherwise identify a district student are not permitted without permission of that student's parent or legal guardian. The board may direct the superintendent to respond at a later date to the issues expressed. And Michael Bond, you are up first, and I can let you know that the board did receive the paperwork, or the packet that you provided.
Great, thank you. Good evening. My name is Michael Bond. My wife and I had lived in Mercer Island since 1982 when I got out of the Marine Corps. I recently retired after practicing law for 44 years. And Deborah and Dan, believe me, you'll get to that point someday too. I'm asking you to adopt a policy restricting the use of cell phones while at school. My proposed policy would apply when the student enters the school grounds until the end of the day. I delivered a package of materials, and I'm glad to see that you received them, and I assume you've read it. We raised 2 children who went through the schools here, and I want to tell you a little about that. West Mercer Elementary, Highlander Middle School, and the high school. And we are very, very happy with the education they received here. Our son Eddie graduated from the high school in 2009, where he was a member of the swim team under Coach Jeff Lowell, and he was a flag dude. Do we still have flag dudes? We do. Okay, glad to hear it. I've got quite a story about that later if you want me to tell it. He completed a music degree at Oregon in 4 years, later a diploma in film scoring, and recently a master's in jazz performance at the University in Trondheim, Norway, where he lives now with his Bulgarian wife, who is completing a PhD in architecture. And trust me, that's as complex as it sounds. Our daughter Anna graduated in 2011. She was captain of the drill team and held student body office. She completed a BS in geophysical engineering at the Colorado School of Mines, and then several master's degrees before she began to teach AP physics at Inglemore High School in Kirkland for 3 years. She did her student teaching here at Mercer Island High School. Now she owns and operates with her husband an IT recruiting firm. My point in sharing this with you is to acknowledge that while their mother was a key player in all of that, I had very little to do with it, actually. The school district played an important role in producing highly motivated, very intelligent, and good, kind citizens. While we gave them cell phones in about the 6th grade, this was before the advent of internet-capable smartphones, and we didn't allow video games in our house. I shared with them my project here. They agreed that a rule limiting cell phone use during the school day should be adopted. I conducted an informal survey on Nextdoor, in which I asked if there was any interest in banning cell phones at school. About 25 neighbors responded 2 were opposed to it, and the rest, including at least 1 educator, were mildly to strongly in favor. In my research, I found no literature critical of a limit on cell phone use during the school day. Instead, I found things like the work of Dr. Twenge, PhD from San Diego. Her appendix is in your materials. She refers to the cohort of students dealing with this issue as iGen. Her book's marketing material sums up the issue. It says, born in the mid-1990s up to the mid-2000s, iGen is the first media and texting replacing other activities. And your discussion about school dances seems to fit into that as far as I'm concerned. iGen spends less time with their friends in person, perhaps contributing to their unprecedented levels of anxiety, depression, and loneliness. The U.S. Surgeon General's report in your materials reiterates the same warning. The school day provides a profound opportunity to create wholesome citizens who care about each other. All data indicates the growing use of cell phones in class, the hallway, and common areas disrupts that opportunity. Please give the issue the attention it deserves. Let me know if you have any questions or if I can do anything for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And with that, may I be excused?
Next up, we have Kimberly Frank.
Good evening, board members, student representatives, Dr. Neal, and district team members. Thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony. My name is Kimberly Miyazawa Frank. My husband and I have 3 children in the school district, 2 at the high school, 1 at the middle school, and we care deeply about their academic success, which is very much impacted by their overall experiences as mixed race Asian American students. Since arriving to Mercer Island 5 years ago, I have been an active volunteer in our community, most relevant to us tonight as a past PTSA Council co-chair for DEI, as the current president-elect for the high school PTSA board, the Senior Activities Committee co-chair, and as a MIYFS Foundation board member. In these roles, I've had both a bird's eye view of the DEI activities of the district and supports that are in place for all students. And yet I acknowledge that there's much more being done than I am aware of or have visibility into. It's with this humility and backdrop that I reviewed the progress report on the Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Annual Plan. I congratulate the board on the gains, and I hope that I would be joined by each of you, though, in the opinion that more can and our students deserve more to be done. There are 3 data points behind this. First, the support and retention of the Asian, Hispanic, and students identifying as 2 or more races that are reflected in the significant growth of that population that we are enjoying as a district. Second, the persistent gap between our faculty and administration and our student demographics and the diversity of the region. And third, the challenges that teachers of color or those teaching controversial topics face in school and on the island. As I'm not here to simply state the obvious, I would like to ask a few questions and at the same time make a few suggestions. First, what guidance has the State Attorney General's office or other legal counsel provided to our district on the indirect implications, i.e. the chilling effect of the SCOTUS decision on affirmative action? And how are we adjusting our strategy or incorporating that opinion into our plan? Second, can we create opportunity to learn more from teachers who are from underrepresented groups or those who are teaching controversial subjects about how best to support them? For example, one-on-one interviews with focus groups, internal mentors, or the startup of affinity groups, also known as employee resource groups, as they're called in the private sector, which provide psychological safety and support for their members, support a culture of inclusion, and in fact, improve retention. And third, who in the district is accountable for the progress on this plan? We know it's more than just demographics and numbers, but what's the activity behind the strategy? We know that when it's everyone's responsibility, that often results in it being no one's responsibility, and accountability is either even further diffused. The growing list of issues the PTSA DEI committee is being asked to take on by parents and students reflects a greater need than is being met by the district's resources. I would be both eager to hear your responses to these questions and would be interested in helping implement any solutions. Thank you for this time.
Next up, we have Adam Rega.
All right. Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to the board and superintendent. I'd like to thank Superintendent Rundle and Nuria Lincina for their fast and complete response to my inquiry for the quantitative why not MISD data and for gathering the data from the exit surveys in the first place. My request was turned around very quickly right after the holiday break, and I sincerely appreciate it. I am disappointed that this board did not request these specific quantitative data at the December 6th meeting after seeing only the word map. As regards the December 6th board discussion about the why not MISD word map, I really liked what Director Lurie said about wanting to dive deeper. And if anyone has ideas on the topic of why families who live in the district are taking the drastic move of removing their children from MISD. I'm here to show the quantitative data behind that word map. Happy to share this. I know Superintendent has it. Happy to share it with the board afterwards. I'm here to show the quantitative data behind that word map and to present an idea on based on those quantitative data. I also like Superintendent Rundle's statement about attracting, retaining, and returning students. As the data from December show, it's the current reputation of MISD that attracts families. That's what brought our family here to the island 4 years ago. An answer to retaining and returning students is provided by the following data. Looking at the exit survey responses to what can MISD improve, I count 8 responses out of 17 families referring to political ideology and views, shown on rows 1, 11, and 13 of this graph. They showed up as 3 unique phrases on the word map and thus were not summed. 8 out of 17 is 47%. 47% of the families who had suggestions on how MISD can improve referred to removing political ideology and views from their children's public school experience. As regards curriculum, 12 out of the 17 responding families suggested the district can improve through a stronger curriculum, 71%. The answer here to retaining and returning students is quite clear. Remove the political ideology from our public schools and refocus the energy spent on a stronger curriculum. You hit 2 birds with 1 stone. This removes the problem with the district identified by nearly half of the respondents and improves the district in a way suggested by a strong majority, 71% of those families. Remember, those families who took the drastic action to move their students to private school represent families, 1, with the means to do so, and 2, that are so disappointed with the district that they were willing to upend their children and make such a large change. A reasonable person would therefore conclude that there are many parents whose children are still in MISD that share these same 2 concerns. I also like what Director Lurie said in the December meeting. Every student counts, and she'd like to shift the focus on if there are students we could be serving better. These data show that you can serve a good portion of students better by removing the political ideology and instead refocusing these efforts on delivering a stronger curriculum. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you act on this data-backed recommendation.
Thank you. All right, unless I'm missing anything, that concludes our public input. And seeing as we have, I don't want to start the next topic, seeing as we have recognitions at 6:30.
Great.
So my proposal is that we take a recess until 6:30, start up again, and we can start with our public recognition. Anyone have a problem? All right, so we are at recess at 6:22 and we will return at 6:30.
Yeah, university, university of Virginia, yeah, it's backwards.
All right, I'm gonna call the meeting back to order. And we are, and pass it over to Dr. Mel. Okay.
We'll bring in our girls swim and dive. Come on in. So I'll say a few things, then I'll turn it over to Coach Chantel Johnson to talk a little bit more about this year's athletes, but 2 times in a row coming to the school board. So for the 2nd time in a row, excited to bring forward tonight our MIHS girls swim and dive team who won the 3A state championship. On November 12th, the Islanders won the 3A state championship with a combined 314 points. The runner-up, our rivals Bellevue, 207 points. And so that just the margin of victory was truly dominating. We had athletes who won state championships on the individual side as well. And a couple of statistics that stood out. As a team, they scored in 11 of the 12 events at the state championship. We had Piper Hing, who was named the swimmer of the meet. And she swam the 5th fastest time ever high school nationally in the breaststroke. I believe you broke your other state record and are the first athlete to swim under 2 minutes. Is that or under a minute rather? In terms of that accomplishment. Grayson Kehoe also had a fantastic performance at the swim meet as well. What I was impressed was as there were interviews being done by maybe some who had scored or who swam in the meet, what I was impressed in the newspapers and then also listening in is the way that you all talked about one another and that this was a team championship. And those of you who are seniors, there's only a couple of you, I believe, talked about the potential for dynasty because of all of the incredible athletes coming behind and that it's just not about 1 or 2 people. So want to turn it over to you, Coach Chantel Johnson, to talk a little bit more about the team. And we can let the athletes introduce themselves and what year they are love to hear from you.
Thanks for having us again. It's like the best reason to get to keep coming back, keep winning. We get to keep coming and see all of you guys. So hopefully we can see you again next fall, right? Yes, it's the goal. But really proud of this group this year. All of the things that you said 1000% are true. It's great that we can be really good at being in the water and what we do, but ultimately, I love these kids and I know that they feel the same about each other. Like I look forward to going to practices. I know they do too. And it really is about all of us getting to be together in a full team effort. Not every kid that on the team participated at the state meet, but every kid on the team is a state champ, right? We kind of very much embody that piece. Every single person's involved in kind of what we do. I do want to do a massive shout out to Piper Engie here. Piper is literally the greatest swimmer ever in the state of Washington history on the girls' side. I don't think that it's even a question. Highest MISD point totals in the history of the state, boys or girls. And we're talking about people like Nathan Adrian, who went on to win gold medals, that also participate in the high school meet. So what Piper was able to do this particular season and really throughout her career is something very special. And I think all of the kids that have had a chance to participate with her the past couple of years would agree. The coolest part is we might not have Piper back next season, but we have a lot of people coming back. And it really is kind of the beginning of some incredible things. So really proud of all of these people and I miss seeing them all the time. We should swim together all the time, but we'll start here. If you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, what are you looking for?
Who you are, maybe, what your specialty swim is but year in school as well.
Okay, yeah, so I'm Piper, I'm a senior and I swim breaststroke.
I'm S. I was freshman
and I swim whatever I get put into.
This is my kind of.
There you go.
Coachable.
I'm Ella, I'm a senior, and I'm a sport freestyler. I'm Grayson, I'm a sophomore, and I'm a freshman. I'm Greta, I'm a junior, I'm a freestyler.
I'm Hope, I'm a sophomore and I'm a freestyler.
I'm Alex, I'm a junior, and I'm a freestyler.
I'm Gigi, I'm a senior, and I'm a backstroke.
I'm Rachel, I'm a senior and I still butterfly.
I'm CJ, I'm a junior, and I'm a distance freestyler. I'm Julia, I'm a sophomore, and I'm a flyer. I'm Ava, I'm a freshman, I also swim in whatever swim puts me in. I'm Emma, I'm a freshman, and I swim breaststroke and fly. I'm also Emma, I'm a freshman, and I swim freestyle.
I'm Meg, I'm a sophomore and I swim freestyle.
I'm Emily, I'm a sophomore, and I swim butterfly.
I can add one more thing. We got to go on a really cool trip earlier this fall where we went and we took on the state champions from Illinois, last year's state champs in Illinois, and then the runner-up state champs in Wisconsin. And the Mercer Island community really kind of rallied behind us this summer and helping us with a bunch of fundraising to get to go and do that trip. We ended up losing the meet to the Illinois state champ by only 7 points. They went on to repeat with a number of All-Americans on the team similar to ours. And then we did end up beating this other team in Wisconsin, but it was really a great opportunity for the girls. We have a lot of best times. We're really able to set ourselves up for a good postseason. We can't kind of do those things without support from a lot of businesses and a lot of just individual people in the Mercer Island community. So we really appreciate those of you who are out there in the digital world. That helps with that. It mattered and it was really important, so.
While they were making their runs through, league and districts and into state was right when a lot of publicity around the Mason State Parade was happening. And so we had TV crews coming and they were filming, and we were featuring the swim and dive team. And Ian and I were talking behind the scenes and getting ready for, we were talking about, okay, we were calling Coach Champel. Okay, when they win this, then she's like, don't talk about that. You're gonna jinx us. Stop talking about this.
Like just wait till Sunday and then we can talk about it on Sunday, not on Saturday, but on Sunday.
We had complete confidence, but I understand the superstition there. So please join me in congratulating the team. Would it be easier for them to stay there and the board to just join them there in the picture? Okay. So we'll do a picture with all of you as the board.
You need to move the.
Yeah, we
You know what? Those are for you guys.
How do you want to do it? You want to?
You wanna? You want front?
How many?
Yeah, we need a row, it's like.
You wanna direct it?
Yeah.
Can we get a row of athletes kind of kneeling in front and then we'll put the board and then we'll go. There we go.
We wanted you guys to be on
Everyone's eyes on me. And I see everyone. Okay. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yes, I do.
Oh, yeah. You remember Rich? Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
We're line up this way, horizontal. Paper works. Facing the.
Everybody.
So our next groups that are coming in are from our IMS band and choir. You're gonna see the orchestra, I believe, later on in the month. But in September and October, our IMS band and choir students auditioned through their teacher, and their auditions were recorded, screened by professional educators or performers in their particular instrument or voice. All state honors are then selected through a blind screening process. And every school in the state that has a Washington Music Educators Association member can audition students. There were 1,717 students from roughly 50 to 75 schools who submitted auditions. And the 16 IMS students with us tonight are part of the 700 students selected outstanding young performers in the state. And they will go on to perform at the Junior All-State Performance in Yakima on Friday, February 16th. Our all-state band students and the instruments they play are here. And I think what's gonna be easiest is for you to introduce yourself. What instrument do you play? And then we'll start with that. Then I'm gonna turn it over to your band directors to talk a little bit more about this. But do you wanna start down here?
Sure. Hi, my name is Lucas Pay. I play French horn. And music is a very important part of my life. I like trying new things and playing new music. And getting the chance to play in the Junior All-State Band is a very special opportunity.
My name is Isabella Huang. I play the trombone, and I love band because of the variety of music we play. Like, we could play a really calm piece and then like challenge ourselves to do something even better, like the all-state music. And band means that when somebody can't figure something out, we are all in it together to help each other and that person.
Hi, my name is Kavya Mudalidhar. I'm an 8th grade flute. I love music because I get to make other people happy, and I'm really excited for this opportunity because I get to learn new things about the flute.
Hi, I'm Phoebe Carr. I play clarinet.
Hi, my name is Elaine and I play the clarinet. Something I really enjoy about band is that it's something I have in common with a lot of my friends. We can play our instruments together and do duets and quartets, even though we don't necessarily play the same instrument.
My name is Aviana Tai and I'm an 8th grade clarinet. And Junior All-State is a great chance for me to participate in a large-scale music event, just like band. Opportunities like this to socialize and communicate musically, motivate and inspire me to audition.
My name is Ender Bond and I'm an 8th grade trumpet player.
Hi, my name is Angie Wayne and I'm in 8th grade and play the saxophone. I'm looking forward to participating in Junior All-State because I'm excited to play the pieces. They're great music, and I'm looking forward to meeting people my own age that share a similar passion as me. I love band because it's a great opportunity to play fun music and make new friends.
My name is Leo Grella, and I'm an 8th grade tuba player.
My name is Henry Shing, and I'm an 8th grade cohort. Band is something that it's fun to hear so many different parts blend together to make beautiful music. I hope that this experience leads me to meet new people who share the same passion for music as I do.
My name is Alex Xia and I play the bassoon. I enjoy band because we get to play a variety of different pieces by different unique composers. One day in band, we might play a slow and peaceful song, and the next day we play something with a completely different feeling. I love the contrast between songs and how unique they each sound.
Awesome. And before we turn it over, we also have choir here, but I want to turn it over to Mr. Bailey. How about Bailey and Bentley together, to Mr. Bentley and Ms. Smith to talk a little bit more about this. And we also saw you on the front cover of the Merchant Reporter, Mr. Bentley, down there with some of our former students that were there, but also had a great opportunity to get to know both of these educators a little bit more on the Macy's trip. It was really fantastic, but it all begins at a much younger age, and that's what this is about. So I'll turn it over to the two of you.
Well, just a couple of words. We're just so incredibly proud of these kids and for them to take the chance and take a risk and work really very hard. Actually, there's some challenging excerpts that they prepare for these recordings, and it's super exciting. And we're very proud of you guys and excited for the opportunity for you to perform with really great musicians from all over the state and make friends from east side of the mountains.
I also wanted to add that we just had the pleasure of hearing the swim team get recognized, and we're very much like a team in that way. There's a community feel But this particular opportunity is more individual. They do get a chance to audition all on their own, which is all what each of you require as well. And to become a part of this greater community, and it's a big unknown. And I love that piece of what junior all-state brings, and then in the future, all-state for the high schoolers, so congratulations, you guys.
So also exciting out of our middle school, were the 5 members of our IMS choir, who also received this recognition for the all-state choir. And before I turn over to the students there, I just want to talk a little bit about a really unique event that happened before the winter break. The concert that the middle school put on this year featured our band, our orchestra, and our choir, and they each had an opportunity to play. But then at the end, they all came together and they played a
Polar Express.
Polar Express, all together. And as someone in the audience, looking at that and seeing all of these incredible musicians, vocalists all coming together in that collaboration that happened with the teachers was really, I thought, a special night, and the first of what will hopefully be many. So students in our choir, why don't you introduce yourselves as well, what grade you're in, and then we'll turn it over to Ms. Rockout. You want to start?
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Sophia Watson and I love choir.
And what grade are you in?
Oh, I'm in 8th grade.
My name is Ashley Shawa. I'm a soprano and I'm in 8th grade too. And I'm just really excited to be able to go to state because I feel like it's an opportunity to work with a ton of musicians and a ton of musical directors that we might not have experienced their teaching style before, and to work with a lot of other students that kind of share the same passion as us for music.
I'm Daphne Sarah. I'm in 7th grade and I really enjoy going to choir at the end of the day and being able to end my day on a good note. I'm Anya and I'm in 7th grade and I'm really happy to be in this honor choir because I got to experience singing with other really good singers. And
Ms. Rocco.
Yeah, makes sense. So, thank you for this opportunity for our students to be recognized for you this evening. Choir has a really special opportunity this year. Every other year, there is an organization, the American Choral Directors Association, and the Northwest region of that organization puts on a conference every other year, as well as honor choirs. And so not only are these students going to WMEA All-State, but actually we have Sophia and Ashley here who are going to an honor choir in Spokane that is separate from this offering. And they are going to be singing alongside singers from 6 states from the Northwest of our United States. And so that's an even larger opportunity for them to be represented on a really, really huge and exciting scale. And they get to work with a conductor who we've sung his music before in class, and he's a composer that we regularly have programmed. So we have our All-State and we have our All Northwest, and then we have 2 students who are not here tonight as well, that I also want to ensure that we have 2 more, Alex Accuse and Olivia Hafer, who are also going to be representing our program. These opportunities are really great, not only for the students, but for them to then come back and bring back to our choir community here on the island what they've learned, that they've gleaned from the students from across the state and the region of the United States. And so thank you for letting us be here this evening and for recognizing and celebrating the success of these students, because they really went out and took this enrichment opportunity and did it on their own and prepared and came and put forth really strong auditions. So we're looking forward to it.
And one of the other takeaways from that concert were the number of 6th graders who are now moving up into the program. And Ms. Rockwell started a 5th grade program last year that allows students to still be in band or orchestra, and then also be in this choir to try to build a greater pipeline as well to continue to build our choir program. And so I think we'll see many more of these to come in the years forward. So please join me in congratulating them first. And then let's bring you all up here. We'll do this photo over here this time, Ian. We have lots of parents who are gonna wanna take pictures too. So we will allow you as well. So we're gonna first have students, if you would go around and just kind of form a semicircle here, and then the board will join you. You too, Ms. Rocco.
Okay.
Do you want a picture?
Okay, we'll do my picture first, then we'll let all the parents jump in this time. Okay.
So how do you want
Everyone see me? I see everyone's eyes. Is everyone's face on me? On me, on me? Okay, perfect. Good. We're not all gonna fit unless I go farther back.
Yeah, got a chair.
Maybe next time. Okay, here we go. You're all in there, eyes on me. You see, I can't see behind you, Ava. You're just there, okay. No, other way. Okay, there, perfect, yes, I can, okay. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you. Now we're gonna do parents. All right, parents, let me move out of the way. Okay. Let's take a picture of parents. All right, we got a few more left. Here we go. Any other parents? Wait, there's one more. Release. Thank you very much.
Okay, I couldn't remember. You mentioned, yeah.
Adjusting. A tornado.
So Fred, are we speaking at 5 in the morning?
Yeah, I am predicting 4 a.m.
Not being Fred.
No snap.
This is Evergreen, Colorado.
That's right.
Not everyone.
I think the buses.
Right.
But they have to have no removal equipment, and they don't have the hills.
That's true.
In mountains. All right.
Okay, moving on with some more recognitions. Let me start off with, just a couple coming up. This is Whole Child Month. So January is recognized as Whole Child Month in the state of Washington. And we have a great partnership with the Association of Supervision and Curriculum Development, who does a lot of great work around this each year, but we celebrate it this month. it is also School Board Recognition Month. And so we have certificates from you, from the School Directors Association, but there are certainly comments in there, but I'll just speak off the cuff personally. You know, it certainly is a little bit intimidating thinking about becoming a superintendent because you have 5 bosses who care deeply about education. And you know, I've had just an absolute wonderful experience with the board, who had hired me, and, you know, really kind of launched me. And I think we had a lot of, things that we, were able to move forward on. And you mentioned some of those this morning or this evening, Dr. Glowitz, and really looking forward to our new board. And the 2 of you, Director Lee and Director Martinez, joining the board. I think we have a lot going for us. As you said, Director Lurie, as a school district, we certainly have areas we need to improve. But I think what the community doesn't realize is the time and effort that you put into it. And then I'll also turn over to our students and the time that I've seen you all put into it, helping to navigate the superintendent student advisory, preparing for these meetings. But you know, it's not a position that you get a lot of glamour for. You do show up to some events and you get to see the fruits of your work, but there's a lot of also behind the scenes things that everyone else doesn't always get to see. There are some late nights or long days, and some of those are about topics that are fantastic, but others are more challenging. But I just want to thank all of you, our student reps, and each of you as board members for your support of me to be able to work with this district and do some really great work. So appreciate all of you. So I start here with Director Glowitz. 2 years of dedicated service, just finished up that piece. Director Lurie just finished 6 years. Director Tucker completed 4, on to her next 4. Director Martinez, welcome aboard, on to your next 4. Director Lee, welcome. Director Warner, 1.5 years at this point as we go, and Director Zane, half a year. So thank you to each of you. If we could, not a lot are left here, we have our staff. So with that, I think that it finishes up our recognitions. Oh, excuse me, one more. Coming up this month, first off on Monday, we have Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. So obviously school will be out, and as Dr. King and others have said, you know, it's all about sacrifice. It's about what we're giving to our communities, and it's come to be coined as it's a day on, not a day off. And so what are we doing in our communities? And then later this month, we'll have International Holocaust Remembrance Day on January 29th. We have a state, or excuse me, a National Remembrance Day in May that corresponds with Jewish Heritage Month. But this particular one is the international, and that will come up on the 29th. So we'll highlight both of those. And that concludes our recognitions.
Do you have an additional report?
I do. You want to go to that?
We
now?
are next. Oh,
I can do it.
yeah, why
now.
don't you just keep
Okay.
going and then we'll go back to
Great.
Greece.
I'll go back. So a couple things. I want to begin with, you know, a topic that continues to, you know, dominate headlines in terms of, you know, where are we headed with AI? And we spent a lot of time at our opening conference for our Instructional Technology Day in August, focused on not necessarily the downside, but what is the upside? What are ways that we can leverage AI in our classrooms from a student perspective, but also a staff perspective. So I wanted Andres just to talk a little bit about a partnership with Magic School and some of the things that AI is helping us to do in the classroom from the teaching and learning perspective.
So, you know, with, in partnership with our instructional tech coaches and our staff out in our schools, and our instructional coaches, we've been researching and looking at ways that we can utilize AI within our schools with our staff, ways that we can help provide some efficiencies. Magic School is a fairly young company that's still developing. They were offering free access to their service to staff that signed up, but are starting to build more of a subscription service. And so in conversations with them, we've been able to enter into a pilot with them. Magic School offers a teacher-facing interface that has roughly about 50 AI tools. I pulled it up here and just have a few, examples of tools that are integrated in here. There are tools that will help our staff develop multiple choice assessments, lesson plans as needed. It can do things like text rewriting and rewrite to make custom text as much as you want. You can level text, so there's text levelers, and we have tools like that. There are things that will do text translation for our MLL students. There are things that will help develop Jeopardy review games to check for understanding, and comprehension within our classrooms. There are things that are just fun, like teacher jokes, teacher joke generators. And so, as Fred mentioned, at the beginning of this year, we provided some professional development to all of our staff. And one of our keynotes was around AI use in our classrooms. And so we're continuing to develop partnerships with innovative companies around the nation and around the world to help provide access to our staff. Another piece that Fred asked me to talk about was, as AI is becoming more of a topic of conversation around headlines, we're also forming an AI policy work group that will get launched here at the beginning of February. We've started to reach out to staff, students, community members. We have 50 respondents so far, really kind of focusing on developing the values of our community in terms of AI use in our schools, not only just with staff, but also with students, understanding not only just how it can be used to leverage, but what are some of those concerns, whether that's around student privacy, staff privacy, or perhaps even plagiarism, other things like that, copyright, pieces. And so I've been having conversations with our staff, our communities, and we're going to be engaging in that process, kicking off here in February, with the idea of being able to create a initial policy that can help guide our schools as we continue to look at the tools and help give our teachers some framework around how we anticipate AI can be used in our classrooms.
I have a question just related to that I don't necessarily the answer from right now, but just for that committee to think about is just that when you were describing all these great, ways that these AI tools can help our teachers, like I immediately went to what's the cost, right? Like what's the, most of these things, even just when you Google, it's free to you, but Google's harvesting your data and selling that to other people, that kind of thing. So it's like if a teacher comes up with a great, worksheet or an assessment, is that being shared back out to other teachers around the country, which can be good, but maybe that's that teacher's intellectual property or it's the district's intellectual property. I don't know how the law works, but it's sort of just to be very aware of this bi-directional nature of AI, and that teachers should know if the stuff that they're doing is being kind of harvested by these companies, and be able to opt out if they don't want it to go that direction. Does that make sense? So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just one thought, and it's great to hear that we're forming a committee, and I hope that, we're doing it in a place like Mercer Island, there's a lot of people in the technology space, and also in the ed tech space. And hopefully we can leverage that, whether it's people that have knowledge, whether it's Y Combinator or others. And I think a district like ours, that's small, that has our demographics, is ideal for being a laboratory, to explore the positives of, of what's gonna occur with AI. I think everyone knows that it's rapidly having a transformative effect, that I think few technology shifts have promised in decades. And I think that, has great promise and great peril, but I think we're uniquely positioned to be at the forefront of that.
And so along those lines, and thank you for providing that update, Director Ronzer. You know, you heard Mr. Bond speak and appreciate him coming tonight and providing resources around cell phones and kind of predicting this growing concern around cell phones a bit this past fall. Mr. Wold from the high school and Mr. Miller from the middle school and I started to really first just explore where are we similar and different between the middle school and high school, and then thinking about what is the impact on our students of cell phone use and what might that look like. And so we have started doing some work around our cell phones, and I think most importantly, I think we need to provide some clear direction and clear parameters just so everyone understands where we are. I mean, essentially, our students in the article that came over the holiday break out of Peninsula were more similar than not than to even what they implemented or maybe what they're just reinforcing. Before and after school, students may use their cell phones and then at lunchtime and in passing periods. But I think that in the classroom piece is really where we're having some conversations. The default is that phones go away when students are in the classroom, but our teachers have different levels of use of the cell phones. What I do hear is if we're depending on a cell phone, then we're also creating inequities to a certain degree, which is why we provide all of our students with technology. But we are starting to think about what a policy and a procedure might look like for cell phones to really just kind of start providing consistency. Our elementaries, it's the easiest. The kids show up, they go in the bag, and you know they're with that same teacher. There's more time during the day. But I would say that when I'm in and around the schools, there are students on their phones. Sometimes they're interacting with each other on their phones. And other times they are interacting in many other ways. So start with Director Glowitz and then look up to hear from students about AI and cell phones.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess one thing about cell phones is how we think about passing periods and lunch. Because that doesn't strike me as a non-material like aspect of the day. I mean, even if one puts a phone away, there can still be that twitchiness, right? When you're expecting a message that you'll respond to perhaps in a group chat during passing period. And that might be a significant distraction during the class period, even though you don't have access to it. And then the other is with lunch. You know, my understanding is anecdotally, there's a significant portion of students that are just on their phone and not interacting. And maybe that's comforting, but maybe it's also isolating. And so I think that just because there's you know, widespread bans of phones in classrooms, I think the discussion is still, you know, what's reasonable during those other times that I'm sort of.
Other board directors, and then we'll leave it to the experts.
I wonder whether you might have like a phone free section of the lunchroom, you know, like of the.
Phone free Fridays.
Like phone free. Like that, so something to cut back in those common spaces and in those in between times, you know. There's a whole kind of culture now. I think a lot of families do a lot of texting during the day, and so parents are like, do you still need a ride? There's like that kind of like logistical communication, so it doesn't mean it couldn't be done to limit cell phone use more, just that you have to kind of like take that into consideration, right? Some kids have like a medical reason they may need to be on their phone, they may be monitoring something health related, like you have to, if you're thinking about policies like that, you have to think about kind of like all the different possibilities. Like I got my own kid in trouble last year because I was texting her all these random questions every day because it was like, it popped into my head and I just figured she would look at it at recess or something, and her teacher was like, what are you doing? And like, she had an Apple Watch, right? And it kept buzzing and it was me, it was, you know, so just that's part of the whole, like, whether we do anything or don't do anything, like, there's an education part for the whole community and for families.
I think that a cell phone ban would be I think with any like attempt to limit cell phones in schools, I have my own feelings about like technology and accessibility and how like, you know, I'm not sure that's a bad thing I see it like during COVID and afterwards that a lot of my son's have relationships with people that are either made online and then carried over, IRL, or that are just like their online friends, like your imaginary friends, that that are valuable friendships and help their spirit of inclusion. But I also think it would be extremely challenging to have cell phones in a place where children couldn't access them quickly from a parent point of view, because, God forbid something happens. Parents are relying on having a text with their child during an event, if there is one, and I think that it would be very difficult to say to parents, well, we have to go and get them out of the secure bag at the Beyonce concert, or turn them on, or, I think the parents are sort of reliant on being like, I heard this happen, what happened? And I think it would be difficult to convince parents that's not, it's like what is that, like low probability but very high impact communication that, they would be desperate to have.
Yeah, I have a couple of things. I think, oh, so sorry.
I will say I echo those three comments. Especially, I think, Dr. Glowitz, I can see in middle school how they need to, once they hear the bus, there's some addiction to wait so we have to kind of figure out which model and teach the community, and also maybe figure out that it's a theater mode, just like we do have in this meeting, we don't have a result. So it is a way of figuring out a way that we can implement that, but I echo what you're saying. And sorry, related to AI, I think that this is something that we have to explore, and I think that it will be probably an ongoing discussion all the time as these tools develop, because it's very new and will keep changing from year to year. So I'm looking forward to see what happens.
And there's also AI used by the administration, because I was actually thinking with regard to the breakdown of ethnicities and like the mixed race group and the Hispanic versus non-Hispanic students. I was thinking like, can somebody get an AI to figure that out, like to break out those numbers for us? And I was like, I don't know how to do that, but I'm sure someone will know. So there's that.
I just want to add, I echo pros and cons. I'm not, I think that, those of us from our generation or generations, we might be in a little bit different ones, but, it's the phone use it's a newer thing. And I think that, as we adjusted, any new technology is going to have learning curves and bumps along the way. And, this is a reality, and it's it's teaching students to make good choices in their phone use, hopefully not become addicted, and use it at appropriate times and for appropriate reasons. So I struggle with it too. I struggle with it for myself. I struggle with it for my daughter, but I love, seeing it cracks me up to see the kids at a table and they're texting each other at the table. It's just a different culture now. So, and it's also, we still do have a lot of lonely kids. And if they're sitting by themselves at lunch, it's a lot more comforting and less isolating to be on a phone and have something to do than to be sitting by themselves and not able to do anything. So that goes a long way for me too. Those are the kids that used to kind of disappear. And now it's more okay to be in public not doing anything because they're on the phone, so they're doing something, and it's not as much of anyway, so I struggle with it too. With regards to the AI, I'm just wondering at what point would it make sense to have a board director or even two on the AI committee at this point, because it seems like it's going to be so policy driven. I love that the experts are doing it and doing the background work, but to kind of guide along the way like we did with the inclusive practices, and it is going to become policy driven. So I think having someone in there, I think it's worth a discussion on whether or not the board thinks, if we're even invited to, but if the board thinks it would be appropriate to have a director or two. Not my area of expertise. I do not volunteer in any way, shape, or form.
Juliet committed.
What?
Juliet committed.
To AI. Yeah, no. But anyways, I just think because it's so policy driven and so new that, I know Microsoft just took this on and having, kind of the uniform AI work. I mean, and they're the ones who did it, right? So I just think having board in from the ground, from
if I want a board member, I volunteer as tribute. I would do it happily if you want for it.
Yeah, and what I think a first step is gonna be, I do foresee a board study session around these two topics. And what would be helpful to begin with is, as a board, kind of what are those, banks of the river that you're kind of thinking about as a board, and then for us to bring you along. And then depending on how the group forms and how that goes, then we can talk about additional participation. But I do see a study session in our future probably with these two topics.
And I think just like offhand, the AI, as it applies to schools, I think of like sort of three general domains. I mean, one is teaching and using AI as a teaching tool. The other is AI from the student perspective and, creating work. And then the third is from the administrative, analyzing data, trends, what can we be doing, differently within cohorts. I mean, I'm sure like there's other sort of lenses in which to see it, but at least on initial impression, I think there's at least three huge, sort of different domains when one's talking about AI, that's just starting to sort through those questions.
Great, so I have a couple of things to say about cell phones first. I think that implementing a no cell phone policy, at least at the high school level, I'm not really sure about middle school because I haven't been there a while. But it would be the type of thing that I think would be putting in too much energy by the staff to kind of get everyone to follow it than what it's worth out of it, at least in terms of like passing period and lunch and things like that. There's no way you can monitor 1,500 kids not to go on their phones during lunch and passing period and whatever. And I think there's also, when you're getting 15 to 18, there's also like an independency factor of it. And kind of choosing when the best time to go on your phone and kind of like learning when it's an okay time and when it's a not okay time. And when you have to decide like to put your education first and put your phone down during class and listen. And it's also learning those skills because you're gonna go into the workforce and have to figure out when is the best time for me to go on my phone and when does feel like the correct use of my time to have my listening ears on. And just that kind of stuff. I also think it's kind of what kids learn in the home. And it's really hard to kind of enforce in school if kids learn that it's okay to be on their phone all the time or vice versa. In terms of AI, I think it would be great for students to kind of learn in school, like how it can be a tool. I know there's a lot of things with, like copying ChatGPT and stuff, but there's also ways that it can be useful in terms of research and stuff. And currently it's blocked, which is not a problem. And students, if they want to use it, they'll use it at home, but it's also can be taught as a tool too, I think, in school.
Yeah, so I agree with a lot of the things that Asha said. I definitely think like restricting cell phones and having that kind of policy, like kind of tries to shield students from like the reality, because like we're always gonna be having our phones, we're always gonna be having to deal with like, oh, when to use it. So I think like rather restricting, like educating students more, maybe would be better. And then like, I think with our current, like at least at the high school, having each individual teacher decide their own cell phone policies is better because it's more flexible. And yeah, it's like just better for that. And also like in each class, oftentimes like students have like free time, like a bunch of different flexible time periods in our classes. And so that's like when we might want to use our phones. So that's another complication with like the policies. And yeah, I think like with high schoolers and middle schoolers, my sister's in middle school and like she communicates with my mom all the time. Like when she leaves school, my mom's like, oh, text me when you want me to pick you up later. So it's important to have that communication channel during school. And I think like severing kids from their phones during that time isn't necessarily the best option. So I think just like approaching the phone issue in a more educated way rather than restrictive way is better. And then for AI, I think it's really important to have teachers like learn about how to use it as well. I know like personally not a lot of teachers use Turnitin, only some of them. And yeah, I know that like I think teachers, since a lot of students already know how to use ChatGPT, know how to use all the rewording bots, and I think like educating the teachers as well would be really good. Yeah, so.
So lots of work ahead of us. Appreciate everyone's insights. There are gonna be perspectives that we need to make sure we're leaning into. and listening and then considering. So, just a couple other things, just quickly.
Can I just add one
Please.
last thing, is making sure, I mean, with what you guys are talking about, I don't have a clue a lot of it in terms of the AI. Honestly, truly what AI is. Chat GPT, I guess, sort of. But, you know, one mistake that I think we often make is not bringing the parents along with it. Many of us have no clue. So bringing us along with it in the learning and policies is gonna help us in the future.
And with that, I think that it's important that we bring not only the tech parents that
Oh,
are
yeah.
very immersed in this, but this is a tool that can help maybe somebody with learning differences or.
Yeah.
So a variety and a very diverse group of parents to see what it will look like. So and what will help, maybe we will approve one, improve others.
I also think it'll help us like save time, like if teachers are able to use AI for like smaller tasks, like they can put more focus into like giving more individual help to students, so that's.
It's enrollment season, as we turn the calendar, and so you'll start seeing some new, signs popping up around the district around, you belong here with registration QR codes that Ian's putting together. We'll have our kindergarten registration, kind of kick off towards the end of the month. And then you'll see some changes on the website, particularly in the enrollment sections. We do have, a button that a family can push at any moment that says, you know, I have enrollment questions. And it takes them right to a Google form. They fill it out, it goes to Nuria upstairs. She gets it and then she answers questions or sends it to the right school or gets them in the right direction. So we're really trying to make the enrollment process a little bit more personalized for new families who are coming in. We'll have the Future Islander Night 2 weeks from tonight over at the high school, for new families who might be looking at coming to the high school. And then a couple other things is we'll have a Healthy Youth Forum on January 31st. We're kind of a co-sponsor for this in conjunction with MIYFS. That'll be at the Mercer Island Community and Event Center. And then the last one, really exciting, that we'll bring them to a school board meeting, but I couldn't help but give them a shout out. Our Pegasus, which is our creative writing and art magazine. It was just recognized or it just received a excellence award Pegasus Realm First Class, and Realm is recognizing excellence in art and literacy magazines. And so we'll bring those students forward, but that's continuing to be a really powerful form of journalism to go along with our radio, our newspaper, our video production. So some exciting things too. And that's the report.
Thank you. Let's go back to 3C, Board Policy 1005, Board Officer and Board Member Duties. Discussion around engaging a lobbyist, and Dan put this on the agenda, so I'm gonna let him.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the reason for this is many of you know the importance of regionalization and how funding works in the state. Last year during the extended session, there was discussions of reducing the regionalization rate, which would have decreased our funding from state apportionment by over $2 million a year. And that was the proposal that was put on the table by Reichdahl. That was ultimately was not adopted by the legislator last session. This session, a short session, so presumably we shouldn't be seeing too much movement on that, although it did sound like in the Lincoln session there might be a little bit of movement in terms of whatever that is, in terms of a decrease. But there's certainly a trend from decreasing funding to districts like ours. And I personally don't think it's justified. I don't think it's backed up by data. When it came to Reichdahl's proposal, it didn't correlate the retention rates. There's actually higher retention rates in lower cost of living districts than in higher cost of living districts like ours. And I think down the line, as we see, particularly as like the current crop of teachers retires, it is very difficult to teach in a district like ours and to have a living wage. And then in particular, sort of zooming closer to the present, in September, there was the Washington State School Directors Association, which not only wants to decrease regionalization, but to decrease it much more significantly than even Reichtel proposed. They wanted to adopt the proposal that was put forth by the K-12 compensation committee, which would have flattened it across the state. And at the time last year, Fred, Matt, I think Matt was on board, I'm not sure, but David and I met with Chris Reichtel and sort of pointed out like, hey, when we look at the personnel tables, Washington State is an outlier in terms of when you look at how homogenous pay is across an economically diverse state. And we see it as problematic in retention. I think there's 2 lobbyists on the payroll that the city has. I'm not sure what their retainer is and sort of what the scope of the work is. I think initially, it would be beneficial to reach out and see if we can leverage those third parties that is on the payroll of the city. We're part of, is it the East Side? The Alliance, the East Side Alliance, which does have a lobbyist, although when you get more districts, it's hard to sort of coalesce around, I think, really like sort of the fundamental issues that affect us all. People have perhaps more pet projects or issues. And because of the amount of money on the table, I think it's something that we need to consider soon. Probably not for this legislative session, because my guess is it's probably too late, but certainly teeing it up for the next legislative session. So we know it's in the pipeline and we have our voice heard and can do so, effectively. So it's not an action item other than, I think this is something that we need to move forward with the, before the end of the year in order to make sure that we have our birds lined up for next year.
And then, I guess my question is that expense, like?
So I mean, the other districts that are larger, acknowledge, like Bellevue has one. At the high end, it's maybe $5,000 a month, which would still be significantly less than other third parties we've engaged. And again, this is something that has real dividends in terms of the amount of funding that we get. So I think the return on investment, and that's the high end, is my impression. One of the considerations is it's a fairly small world from what I can tell when it comes to lobbyists for public education at the state level. Maybe you're looking at like 3 or 4 individuals where that's their area of focus. I mean, there's more. I think there's maybe like 40 odd registered lobbyists or individuals in groups, but about 3 that focus on education.
Does that include the ones that lobby for WASDA already, or?
So there are some potential conflicts. I mean, no, so WASDA has their own in-house, and from what I'm aware, they don't use that many outside parties. However, it's fairly interesting to go on to the PDC website and to look at who's registered as a lobbyist for different districts. Because you can also look at the clients. And if one puts in school district, I think that was the search term that I used last year, but you can see which districts have it. And there's a number of districts that have lobbyists that they engage. And I think that the return in terms of the visibility, I think is significant. And so, yeah, so I think it's something that we should, maybe at a study session at some point in the future, look into, what that would look like, and then sort of what the liaison would be, if it would be, just with the administration, or, how that would then report out to the board, to the, direction. But it just seems we haven't got as much traction as we would have liked to see by leveraging the East Side, the Alliance that has one of the small handful of lobbyists on payroll.
So the East Side Consortium has a lobbyist?
They have, I think Cascade and Charlie Parker is the one, and Grace Yuan from KNL Gates. But because it's 7 different districts, it's, when you get a lot of different people at the table, sometimes it's a little bit more directionless, perhaps, and it's harder to zero in on what are the issues that have the greatest impact, where we need to speak with a single voice. And to me, particularly with sort of the backstory of some of the procedural strategizing for WASDA, by eliminating weighted votes from districts, I think it's clear that the train is, it's clear that there, when you have more centralized funding, there is a competition for how that funding is divided. And unfortunately, it's not always based, I think, in rational argument.
So we have, to bring you up to speed, we're, as Director Glowit said, we're part of the School Alliance, which is Lake Stevens School District, Everett School District, Lake Washington, Tahoma, Issaquah, and us. And we work with, Grace Yuan, as kind of our lobbyist and central point of contact. Director Booby was, on 2 different, I think, calls today down with Olympia, through Grace Yuan, working on special education bills, and testifying, in front of committees. So that's kind of the group that we use. It's a nice group to be a part of from the standpoint of we get large districts, small districts, and we get Snohomish County and King County. And so that kind of helps out, from there, but that's the alliance that we currently are.
I think it could be a great use for a specific topic. I'm certainly open to discussing it more and getting more information. I don't know that, we certainly need to wait and see how this legislative session goes, because it's the short session. I don't know that we have as much to worry about. I mean, they're always gonna do something funky, right? But I think that it's, learning more is great. I think that waiting and seeing what happens at the end of the session and kind of what then our legislators' interim plans are to determine whether or not it's time to. I don't know that. I think we need to have a specific reason to justify the funds. If there's a specific bill or issue that we know is going to be hot or becomes hot, yes. But I also have no idea if that's a relationship we need to build ahead of time, or if that's at that point we can go find somebody. So that I just don't know, and I'm happy to learn more about that. If it's we can engage someone if and when it's necessary, I would say now it's not the time. But if we need to build a relationship with someone so that we can do that when something becomes an issue, then perhaps it is.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, I think WASDA has definitely put regionalization on the table or revived it. I mean, to the extent that I didn't think it was ever gonna fade away. We were able to preserve regionalization last year during the long legislative session by just sort of, giving it the old college try and doing it without lobbyists. I don't think that issue is gonna fade, and I think it's gonna be on the agenda next year. And I think we need to get ahead of it soon. But not for this legislative session, but for the next one.
So timeline could be, based on that, perhaps a timeline is, at the end of this session, we'll kind of see what bills we can predict that are gonna come, kind of see where we are, have another conversation, and then decide whether or not we go and investigate who else is out there, or kind of go from there. So kind of that May-ish to come back to it.
Yeah, I would say spring, or at the conclusion of this session, we can sort of see, I think it'd be a natural time to do that.
Thank you. Board policy number 5A, full governance process monitoring, board policy 1800 OE1, student focused fundamentals, fundamental 2. We have level 1 and a level 2.
Great. So Dr. Booby is here tonight to present fundamental 2. We've had some conversations in the fall around potentially looking at this in a different way in the future. And so I think that conversation can continue, but it is due for a review, so we're bringing it forward tonight. Fundamental 2 being really focused on the highest learning standards across our school district. So Dr. Bowie.
Yes, so you have a few documents in the board docs for Fundamental 2. The first one is our key performance indicators for Fundamental 2 with explanations around what those are. I don't know if you've had a chance to kind of look at this or have questions. We are very proud of our literacy data and our work around letters and making sure all of our staff now in K-5 have finished and have been a part of all of the letters training. So you can see how our 4th graders are doing compared to and broken out by students in SPED or ELA, and they continue to grow. We are dipping in our SBAC in middle school, and we are looking into that. But that is not just us, that is a statewide trend, that middle schoolers tend to have tend to struggle on the state testing. And so that middle school is just a difficult time for those of you who've had middle schoolers. And then our 10th graders and our graduation rate. So we have all of that on there. I don't know what questions you might have, but I might draw your attention more to the AP addendum to talk to you about some anomalies in that data, if that's okay. Okay. So we are seeing some dips in our AP data. We are having more students than ever before take the AP exams. In fact, I just checked yesterday. We have over 1,700 students registered for the next set, and 1,400 have already paid. And so we are seeing a great uptick in the number of students taking the test. I'll point out biology, for instance, as we're digging into the data. Because on some of these exams, we have a small N size, and I mean greater than 10, but maybe less than 20. If 3 or 4 students don't do well, so like for instance, we had one particular test that we had 3 students decide not to take the class, but just do independent study. That small N size had a great effect on the actual percentage. And so we have a few hypotheses on looking at the N size as well as correlating the data with some other data that we have in the district and coming back to you. We're going to represent Fundamental 2. Fred, do you remember when that is?
Not determined, not on the agenda yet.
Not on the agenda yet, okay. So the hope is the board has had a work session around Fundamental 2. And is this the way we want to see the data? And Learning Services have been working with the school board. So our hope is to represent Fundamental 2 in a different way in a few weeks. And when we do that, we will have more data drilled down on the AP test to help you understand where those anomalies are and why.
And I had a short back and forth with Director Tucker on this, who pointed that out, which was fantastic around, what are we seeing? So.
Yeah, and in addition to that, which I'll be really interested to hear what you guys come up with, because it does seem like sort of a systemic something that is going on, maybe just so many more kids taking the tests, or as you say, taking them with different preparation. But I'm also just curious about AP English Lit and Comp versus the other AP versus English Language and Comp. English Lit and Comp is like 66.1 versus wait a minute, hang on. Would the scores different, or is it just the number that are taking it is different? Hang on.
I'm pulling it right too.
It's 1 11th grade and 1 12th.
Oh, is that what the difference is? Like, I just was curious, like, is that right? One is 11th grade.
11th and 12th grade.
You take Lit 12th grade, and you take Lane 11th grade.
Okay, never mind then.
Okay.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Yes, one of my questions, do we have any statistics on how the grade correlates with the AP score? I've heard at a previous Mercer Island High School pack, some parents had students that did very well in the class. And maybe it's just, test taking, I realize, is its own animal, but, hope, to some extent it is, theoretically, right, a proxy for knowledge. And we're surprised to see, relatively low scores on the AP test, despite doing well, grade wise in the class. And just wanting to make sure that, there's a correlation, and if there's not a correlation, why?
Okay,
Yeah, I don't believe that we've done that,
we haven't. but I love-
analysis.
You're talking to the right person. I love statistics. Like I'll get out my statistical package and we'll throw in the,
Right.
feel like I'm doing a dissertation.
Multivariate,
Yeah, we'll do.
Asha and Ava, as far as, and I know each of you have taken some AP classes, as you've gotten to the end and you've taken the tests, have your scores on the tests been similar to grades, if you care to comment, or talking to other students, are they similar?
You're gonna help.
Or is it completely? Yeah.
I think it's dependent on the student. Some students just aren't the best test takers like myself, so I didn't do that well in the exams, but I did well on the class. So I think it really depends on how you are as a student, but also the teacher too. Some teachers, they make their class really rigorous, and like examples, Miss Yoder, her calc class, it's super rigorous, but almost every kid gets a 4 or 5 in her class, so it's really like teacher dependent.
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on like the subject area. Like I know in our science department, a lot of the teachers offer like 15-20% curves because otherwise kids will be getting like C's, and then I know the AP tests are graded based on like average grade, like they're curved in a certain way. And I know it's really hard, for example, on the AP Chem test to get a good grade. So I know for like a lot of the science departments, teachers like might do a little bit of grade inflation to save students and like kind of save their stress, but that might lead to like lower scores in general on the AP test. So even if a student is getting an A, like they might not do as good as on the actual test. And I know that's for like a lot of our really hard science courses, because it's just like really hard to do that anyways, when you're only getting like one or 2 years before you're doing a really hard AP course of like prerequisites. And then, yeah, but for other ones like micro or AP Lang, I feel like those ones are more correlated, yeah.
I'm gonna sound a little bit like a broken record, but make the statement first. In no way am I suggesting that we do away with accelerated classes or challenging programs, and that our curriculum needs to provide for everyone along the spectrum. That being said, we have choices about what programs we're gonna use, and however many years ago, 10, 15, 20 years ago, decided that Mercer Island High School was really gonna focus on AP and use the College Board and that process in terms of in terms of the accelerated programs for our high school students. I question whether or not that's still the right decision. I really think it's our obligation to look into that more. We've got college and the high school. I know it's not going to be the right choice, but there's International Baccalaureate. There's other programs out there that aren't political, that aren't cash cows, and that aren't teaching to a test. And then they might or might not get credit based on the test. I think whether or not you're a test taker, like you guys said, should not reflect their knowledge. And more and more colleges, and especially the elite ones, are not even accepting them. So we're using this in a way, oh, you can get college credit. No, they can't. I mean, a little bit, and you can sometimes in your gen eds, but not in what we by adopting this are saying, here's what you can do. And it's like I said, I'm not a big fan of the cash cow. And as we've seen College Board get more political, I'm feeling that way more. Again, we need to have an accelerated option. We need to have it open to any student that wants to challenge themselves. But we need to also do our work and make sure that it's the right one that's offering the right things for our kids. I really worry, especially as we're comparing to the East Coast, You know, I know that there were push classes, AP US history classes last year that didn't get through the material. And, you know, for whatever reason, our school year starts even up to a month later than a lot of the East Coast schools, and they're AP tested at the same time. So based on the fact that they're that rigid in terms of not accommodating our school year and allowing our students, that extra month is significant in terms of learning time. Why is it a program that we're supporting? So, and how much does it impact our students? So all I'm saying is this the right one? Looking at these numbers, again, I mean, it's optional for a student to take the test. I don't know what, I'm not persuaded that these statistics are, and it could go towards revamping fundamental too, so that could be solved in that. But are these statistics the ones that we want to be looking at when we're looking at whether or not we have a challenging and rigorous curriculum for all students? I would have to be convinced of it, but so far I'm not. So I would love to start that audit sometime soon, and if it's not, and again, I don't know much about college and high school. I just know that there's other programs out there, and especially with online resources and anyways, I just would love to know if our purpose is rigid and challenging curriculum, which I think it is, that's our fundamental. I don't think this accomplishes that. And if it does, someone needs to convince me of it in a better way than looking at these scores.
I do think one of the things that this addendum misses is the focus just on the high school, right? I mean, that is to some extent the culmination going through elementary and middle school, but what we don't see is what the growth looks like for each cohort of students at the elementary and middle school. I mean, so you have testing and, you know, like what percent, you know, passed the SBAC, but that doesn't say that, I mean, there can be a kid in second grade that has stagnated for several years, that isn't learning. And so what I would like to see, which perhaps is just becoming available now with iReady and more different metrics, is that students before high school are seeing growth wherever they may be. And it's not anecdotally, I think there's a number of stories you can get from parents who feel that, and from what they hear from their students, that they are not challenged in school. And that they're used as teachers' assistants, or that they're told that they can, you know, will max out on iReady, and so they shouldn't, you know, so they shouldn't do it. I want to see that each group of students has learned at whatever grade, and fulfilled their, you know, capacity and are engaged.
I think this would actually be a great topic for a study session. I realize we keep piling these on at this point. We're probably up until like 18 hours in October in terms of study sessions, but I do think the question of like what metrics we look at is really worth considering, because AP classes are not accessible to every student just because of the nature of the work, right? And it doesn't capture the whole rigor of the curriculum, and it's true that you kind of get what you measure, you know? And so if like this is the you know, the standard, if this is like demonstrating what a challenging and, you know, diverse curriculum we have, like we're just gonna get more and more and more AP classes, right? But that they aren't always what teaches kids the most. Like I was very sad when one of my sons dropped Chinese after 5 years because he didn't really want to take the AP exam. And for him to do Chinese in his senior year would have been just 100% preparation for the exam. Like, it would be lovely if there were like conversational Chinese or like Chinese culture and like the Chinese internet, you know, class or some class he could have taken. And I realize we're trying to simplify it rather than, you know, complexify our high school offerings, but just like the focus on APs, very valuable though they are for a lot of reasons for kids. It does detract from that kind of like whole kid experience, you know, and kind of being able to offer like a really wide range of classes that can genuinely encourage a kid to want to learn more and to kind of stick with the subject. So I'd love to talk about it more.
Yeah, I would too, and I would just like really echo, all the concerns that Dr. Larry has indicated with the College Board as an organization. And AP classes, and I would be particularly interested for this methodological study session in the future, to know like what other similar school districts, like high achieving school districts like ours, similar size, what they're doing with their AP classes, and maybe what some of the most, excellent independent schools are doing with their AP classes. I know on the East Coast, a lot of the independent schools are just, they don't do it. You know, it's a waste of their time. They're teaching much more rigorous classes without, so, you know, it's possible to develop a curriculum that makes a really interesting, I don't know, history of American history or whatever, class that is not AP. And I do think it's a bit of a myth that we have, as a parent whose child has gotten 5s on all of the AP tests and then never got credit, you know, like, it's a myth that you can get college credit for that. For any of those classes, no matter what your score is, and, you know, I just feel like the more flexibility we offer our educators and our students for their education, particularly at this like level where they're really trying to get that independent thinking, I think it's fairly valuable.
I mean, it's really one potential data point, and since you brought up, you know, how, you know, comparing to other high achieving districts would be, you know, where students go after graduating, and then how our district compares to those high achieving districts. I mean, so I think there are definitely other metrics out there, but I certainly won't want to see that, you know, just, you know, attacking sort of the weaknesses without seeing some of the deficits of having like.
Yeah, you can't just strip them away.
And then there's nothing to measure by at the end of the day, right?
Oh, and I think what you all alluded to as well is that, if we're going to take away, we need to make sure that whatever we put in place is better than what we have now. And that'll take some exploration, analysis, and thinking, and ultimately probably beginning with those study sessions around, you know, what do we want for our students?
And I will say that also look where our deficits are of that program and see if what we bring is more inclusive to those who we will be intimidated just by the test, and we might have a better program for everybody.
We're also kind of raising up now a generation of younger kids who are in elementary school, middle school, and who because of what you call it, equitable grading, what do we call it?
Standards-based grading or.
Standards-based grading, right? Are kind of having this wonderful experience of like, you can keep learning, and like, if you do poorly on a test, you can maybe have a chance to take it again, or to like, you know, do something different to kind of like, and to have all these different approaches to learning, like, I'm an auditory learner, I'm a this kind of learner, and then it's like, they get funneled up to the high school, and then it's like, okay, bam, there's this high pressure single test where you're gonna sit and you're gonna do it, I don't know if it's on a computer now or on paper, but like, you know, there's one way to do it and it's do or die kind of thing, you know, and so sort of like it's not as representative of how we're teaching the kids when they're younger. I think part of any like future thinking about this would be like reaching out also to colleges, you know, to basically say like, to people kind of in the admissions field to be like, if a kid takes like an amazing, you know, calculus class with a big project or something at the end, are you gonna look at that as favorably as the kid getting, you know, a 5 on the BC calculus AP test? Like, maybe not. Like, the APs are really fast, right? They can scan your application and be like, oh, this kid did a lot of APs.
They don't have, I mean, unless you take it before your senior year,
Right.
they don't have the AP score when they're getting accepted or not accepted into college.
Well,
They haven't taken it yet.
okay, but whatever, like for
No,
the-
but I mean, that's right.
Right, but like, I think that's why it's, right, so I think and is that AI, like, is that AI reading the applications? I don't know, so those are kind of questions.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right, so,
Productive B.
I made.
Sorry, yeah, that's.
No, I made several notes.
Yeah.
You know, personally, I kind of look at this as a prospectus, right, for our business, our company, and what we do. And, you know, what data do you want to see to show that we have high learning standards for all students, right? So the original report actually has like graduation rates and it's broken down to look at demographics, right? So you've got students with disabilities, you've got students who are English language learners, and then we have these other addendums. The third addendum, or the extra addendum we have here that I haven't talked about is our SBAC data. And this one actually does compare us to Washington State and to several other comparison districts that are nearby to us. And you can see, and I believe it's in every grade level, we outperform. And what is not on this report that I'm personally proud of is because we have, and this is Nova and Hannah have really done a great job throughout the district, making sure that every teacher, special ed teacher, everyone who's touching a student in their learning around reading is learning letters and learning about the science of reading. And we can see, you know, Mercer Island in 4th grade, we had 89% of our students pass the SBAC test. And for our students with disabilities in 4 grade levels, our students with disabilities outperformed the state of Washington general ed number right there. In 4 grade levels in reading and 2 grade levels in math. And so that work is evidence that we're reaching different learners, right? And so that's something to highlight is, do we have high standards for all kids? So we talked about AP, but now we have all these other demographics that for us to look at. And it could be SBAC as one, it could be grades, you know, what are we doing? But I think, you know, presenting this to you tonight, it shows the hard work of all of our staff and every teacher in every grade level and how they are supporting our students in their learning.
So I've definitely made notes around, I know that Dr. Boo has been making notes as well. And we'll work together, Director Lurie, Director Glowitz, myself will work on some agenda planning on this and keep the conversation going. I think it also goes back to, you know, our civic minded graduate, and that's that whole graduation piece is, who do we want Asha to be as a senior when she graduates at the end of the year, or Ava, and then work backward from that all the way down into our elementary schools of how do we get to that place.
Can I just make a few comments? I know we didn't focus on it, but the part of the when we added the mental and physical health in 2019, I think we struggled with, and this could be in a language review as well, but just to throw it out there now to think about. These numbers were, I mean, the criteria that we picked, and I was part of that. You know, those are important and all, but I just wrote down a few notes in terms of what I thought would be much more important, and especially when we're doing the healthy youth survey. I wrote down % of students who report receiving in-school services for mental health. And then students who receive out-of-school services for mental health. Change the days of the week for physical activity from 7 to 4 or 5, which I think is just much more reasonable and realistic, frankly, and I think what's recommended. And then also question, you know, we're on Mercer Island, so we forget, but ask questions about if anyone's suffering from food insecurity or having challenges with a lack of parent or guardian support at home.
Yeah.
To me, those are drivers that go much more to mental and physical health. I know we really focus on having a safe adult to talk to at school, but you know, they're people too. So not only at school, but healthy youth survey can be, do you have a safe person to talk to in your life? Whether it's a sibling, a parent, cousin, like whoever it might be, a babysitter, whatever. Those are things that I would love to talk about adding to that, because I think, I don't know.
But I guess the question becomes, this is fundamental too for highest learning standards.
But
we have other standards that, you know, like maybe the work could be done with modifying language, and whether it's fundamental 1 or 3 for self-awareness, empathy, emotional, social intelligence. But I think high academic standards, when one starts that, I think it creates perhaps a false dichotomy to put in mental health into fundamental two. I mean, should we also then talk about athletic obligations and time spent and the effect of athletics on mental health? I mean, to me, mental health is a huge issue. I don't think it's a fundamental two issue.
Which would be perfect to continue on, and I mean, these are both excellent examples of the study session of coming back together and saying, what do we want to not only measure, but define as fundamental one, fundamental two? Because I think you're onto it, that it's probably not just a fundamental two analysis, when we're looking at these things. And then, you know, the healthy youth survey, we can't change the survey itself, but if we know what the interests are, as a board, vis-a-vis the community, now we can then go and mine other data points from other surveys that we also do to really round this out.
And I think mental and physical health, those things are something that we are teaching in our curriculum, like how to care for yourself, like how to, you know, like sort of social emotional education. That is part of our mandate from the state to teach kids. So that is part of education.
I hear what you're saying.
Well, no, certainly, it's a fundamental, I'm just not.
No, but no, I totally hear what you're saying, and maybe this isn't the place for it, but, I mean, but there has to, I mean, first of all, we have it here. But second of all, I mean, because it's in the state mandated, I mean, in terms of health and.
But in terms of like.
But if a kid doesn't have enough food at home, they're not gonna be learning in school. So we need to know, do we have students who have these needs that we aren't aware of? So I'm just saying, to me, it's all interconnected, and if we, you know, maybe it doesn't belong on this report, but I know that those questions are not anywhere else. Maybe the therapy, no, I don't even.
I'd have to look at the health use survey to see exactly how the wordings are and where it might get in there.
And we might know how many students are accessing in-school mental health services. But
yeah, I think, I think a discussion is mental health, I think we all recognize, huge issue. What's the sort of appropriate student-focused fundamental to really dive into?
It's probably three.
Yeah.
You probably.
Three, or like perhaps its own, I mean, like.
Sure.
Yeah, however we all make more. Yeah, well, I mean, I don't lose anything, it's not like there's no amendments, like in terms of like the five, right?
Yep.
I also think it's just like a baseline statistic to have, like you can just create a baseline, this is how many students have this, this and this, and you can reference it for every fundamental.
sorry, opening up.
No, we'll add it to the agenda.
All right.
Add it to the list.
Okay,
Keeps us
any
included.
other questions, comments on fundamental two? Do I have a motion to find the superintendent in compliance of fundamental two?
So moved.
Seconded. Any further discussion? Students? All in favor? And board directors, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? 2050. Moving on, it is a long meeting tonight. Consent agenda, any motions?
I moved that we approve the consent agenda as published.
Seconded. Any discussion? Student directors, are you in favor?
Aye.
And board directors, yay.
Aye.
Any opposed? 2050. Superintendent and announcements.
Well, the student body would be pleased with their representatives who are already lobbying me to do something, take action on tomorrow. We will
I got a
be.
picture sent from home.
I can't drive like that.
We'll pick you up with a bus. We did do a tabletop exercise. We have a weather team, Director of Transportation, Maintenance and Operations, Communications, Director Sullivan, myself. We did a tabletop exercise before the break, ran through scenarios, so we're in good shape in terms of our procedures. We won't come out with anything till tomorrow morning, based on closures or delays. During the meeting, we have been getting flash alerts from other school districts who are either going to bus routes already. So we'll definitely be monitoring it and provide updates in the morning.
It's gonna be cold, but keep in mind, if it's canceled, we make it up.
Yes, we do.
If it's 2 hours late, we do not make it up.
It's not too early.
It's just-
Yeah.
What?
Maybe black ice on
It's
the road.
it's gonna be cold,
Yeah,
really cold.
Carpool if possible.
so there's my notes.
Thank you. Board announcements, inquiries and reports, legislative report, I'll just, before handing it over to Jody, not for today, but I mean in the future. I did attend the WASDA advocacy meeting today. There were 2 speakers. One was on school construction bonds, and mostly for small districts, but there's not a lot of money out there. They're trying to get the money. They're trying to use the
Oh, the capital gains.
thank you, the capital gains, everybody wants it, they're working on it. And then, there's always talk of changing the undemocratic supermajority to a majority, a simple majority. I believe there's a bill that's take the bond passage rate from 60 to 55. So far, it's not 50, 55 is better than 60, but why is this one different than everyone else? It should be a simple majority because that's democracy, but that's 2 cents. We'll have that further discussion. I know we don't all necessarily agree, that's okay, we don't have to. And that's it for legislative reports. I'll make sure Jody gets the, their Thursdays at noon online, and it's an update and sometimes speakers. The other speaker was on fentanyl education and made a strong point that it would not, that it's already part of health in terms of drug and alcohol education, and it would be bringing in a curriculum to teach about fentanyl and opiate dangers. And it's not intended to put a burden, at least a huge burden on districts, that it would be just adding to that curriculum because it's the ideal place to learn it because of the huge increase in fentanyl deaths from 17 and unders. It was about 30 last year.
In the state?
In the state. Or it increased by 30%.
I don't know what the.
I think they said 30. Huge for everyone, but at 17 and under. Announcements, inquiries, and reports, just kind of as a recap, we use board reports to talk about meetings that you've attended as a representative, if any community events you attended, and then if there's an issue that you would like discussion in the future. I'm wondering if we want to, I know our students have, they present from the schools, but I'm wondering if we want to start including them. Our students didn't used to be here at this time of the meeting. But since you guys always are, if you guys want to start participating in board reports, and if there's things like this that you want to say, no pressure, I'm just throwing it out there now. So if there's anything that you want to say tonight, you're welcome to. Otherwise, start thinking in the future if the board agrees that you are members of the board and have this opportunity as well.
Well, Ava and I actually forgot to put something in our board report, so we can share something right now.
Okay.
When Dr. Wendell was referencing the Holocaust remembrance, I actually forgot to put in the report that the high school had Georgia Hunter in 3 days this week, and she's the author of We Were the Lucky Ones, which is, you guys may have heard of it, but it's a pretty popular book that's turning into a TV show about a family. I think it's 5 siblings, and they all survived the Holocaust, but in really unique ways. So she was there for 3 full days and got to speak to a ton of our English classes and speak during lunch too.
I will start with here, just so that you guys can hear conversations, and then Megan, do you have anything to
Do you wanna do?
Oh, you wanna, no, I was gonna go this way and then over there, but we can start now. That's what was going on in my head. Dan, is there anything you'd like to
Yeah, so,
report? I wasn't skipping you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was not able to make the Mercer Island High School PAC meeting today, but thank you, Ava and Asha, for filling everyone in, particularly on Dan's culture at Mercer Island High School. I guess the one thing of note, exchanged some emails just as an individual, board member with lobbyists regarding transportation and potentially the ability out of the transportation levy fund to be able to conduct an analysis as well as potentially to offset, just to give local districts the authority, something we discussed during the linkage session last week. Not to replace the requirement that Tana is introducing when it comes to electric buses, but to recognize that there's a footprint beyond buses, as we see with transportation and flying to various events. And that if we're to tackle, I think, climate change with the urgency with which it deserves to be approached, that I think that we need to think more holistically. And I think the beginning of that is an analysis of, what is the footprint for the activity. So anyways, there's just some back and forth because I think there's some skepticism from the lobbyists as well as from Tana of perhaps it being a way to undermine the electric bus requirement, but I'm not thinking of it in terms of an opt-out, just as in addition to, for those communities that would potentially support, such an undertaking and has the funds to do so through the transportation levy. So that's my.
I didn't attend any meetings or anything, but I wanted to just say how much I appreciate having our student board directors, like in tonight's meeting, like multiple times. You guys have been really helpful providing like the student perspective. And we could all sit here as a bunch of adults and be like, yes, perhaps we should do X, Y, Z. And then let's go out and ask the students about it, but like having you right here and taking part in the conversation and like being all like up to speed on all this stuff, super fun. So we appreciate it.
And I think that it was winter break, so I only attended the middle school talk by the author hunter, so I love that this opportunity is brought to the community to get started conversations along with them too. So that's the only thing that I have been in. That's, yeah.
I have not attended any meetings in my 3 hours on board.
I was gonna say, we will have to work on that. And I just want to say, I said what I was gonna say about DECA earlier when we were talking about DECA. It really is an amazing opportunity to watch our students thrive and challenge themselves. And I think a lot of them also, at the end are surprised with how they did. I saw Ava walk by. I didn't hear you. And then I also went to the author talk on Tuesday. Was that Tuesday? Wednesday or Tuesday? And it was amazing, and from a different focus than Holocaust survivor, but also the author is not Jewish, and learned of her Jewish roots from a high school paper project that she did of Who Am I? And interviewed her grandfather and learned. That's how she learned. And then, so her talk is all about her journey of doing research and traveling around the world and meeting with family members and other people who were there, at different points and learning about the places that her family went. So that's something that everybody can relate to, whether or not you have, a connection to the Holocaust or not. But and it was just, she was a phenomenal speaker, and thank you to I think it was Schools Foundation and PTA and Parent Edge. And then our students who run the Holocaust Education something, they're not committee. Our high school student club coordinated as well, and they participated all day, and wow, they're pretty awesome kids too. So that was super fun to watch. I was pretty impressed with all of them. That's it for meetings and me. So We do have an executive session to conduct an executive, to review the performance of a public employee. So rather than recessing, we're gonna recess into executive session. Do I need a motion?
First establish, how long you think you'll be in executive session.
Okay, I would say.
And then I'll cover.
What?
Review the.
Yeah, to review the performance of a public employee, pursuant to RCW 4230-110-G. We will return to the regular meeting at 8:30. 8:35.
No, I was saying fine.
Oh, 8:30. And so I'm looking for a motion.
So
Seconded.
And all in favor, well, students, no, you're excused. And all in favor? Any opposed? So 5-0. And so we are now in recess of the regular meeting and entered the executive session.
Right, check.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I hope you guys don't feel safe when it's school.
Is anyone folding yet? Have any schools done anything?
Either way, the Colorado
Right.
just laughing at.
Do I have a motion to return to executive session?
So
Seconded.
I have to get used to all the new initial. Executive session 8. Vote 5, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, we're reconvening the regular meeting.
Yep.
We are back from recess, reconvene the regular meeting at 8:30, and I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5-0. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Do we have stuff to sign, Michelle?